Chapter 492. Breakthrough to the perfection of the innate golden immortal realm. Guan did not immediately establish the lifespan dojo, but prepared to make a breakthrough first. This time he did not plan to enhance his physique or cultivation technique, as he felt that his improvement in all areas was already significant. In these turbulent times, he could completely focus on pursuing an increase in cultivation level. Once the new era arrived and everything returned to peace, he would use the long years to improve in all aspects. Moreover, over the years he had contemplated the Tao rules, continuously making progress, which might compensate for some gaps in lifespan evolution. Since his lifespan had reached 10 billion years, it was time to set off. Guan disappeared into thin air from inside the house, stepping directly into the reincarnation vortex and heading to the land of reincarnation. Because his avatar had explored many times, Guan walked decisively without glancing left or right. After passing through a dark area, he traversed a distance far beyond what a mortal spirit could imagine. Even a free immortal would need time and might not be able to cross the dense reincarnation rules. Looking around, it was still darkness without a glimmer of daylight, but the fog symbolizing the yin and yang reincarnation appeared in front, indicating that Guan had arrived at the land of reincarnation. The land of reincarnation had no land. Looking down was an abyss, and looking up there was no ceiling. There were no directions here, no vitality. Anyone here would feel only endless solitude. Even though Guan's avatar had been here many times, he had never seen any other living beings. Fortunately, there was a special type of spiritual energy that could help him break through. With spiritual energy, powerful beings would surely be nurtured. It's just that Guan had not yet encountered any. After a long time, Guan landed on a gray lotus flower which was 100 zhang tall. Looking around, these gray lotus flowers of varying sizes occupied the dark space, emanating a faint glow. These lotus flowers were not living things. Rather, they were condensed from the reincarnation rules, and their coverage was extremely wide, even comparable to the silent extinction domain beyond the celestial spirit great world. Because the lotus sea was vast and boundless and had an even denser reincarnation spiritual chi, Guan chose this place for his breakthrough. The moment he landed, he activated the lifespan barrier. Although he didn't feel any mighty presence, he remained vigilant, acting as if there was a powerful being lurking in the shadows. He couldn't expose himself. Guan sat cross-legged, pulling up his attribute panel and looking at his entire 10 billion years of lifespan. His mood became pleasant. The last time the breakthrough took 20 million years per crossing the tribulation. This time, even if it reached 50 million years per crossing the tribulation, he could break through 200 times. He hoped it wouldn't be that exaggerated. Guan adjusted his mentality and immediately invested 10 billion years of lifespan into his cultivation level. He was even more generous than before. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 50 million years. You forcefully strike at the golden immortal Tao fruit realm with the great achievement of the great Tao great freedom as you wish Bible and begin crossing the tribulation. You did not endure the reincarnation top Tao ultimate tribulation. Crossing the tribulation failed. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 100 million years. You forcefully strike at the golden immortal Tao fruit realm with the great Tao great freedom as you wish Bible and begin crossing the tribulation. You did not endure the reincarnation top Tao ultimate tribulation. Crossing the tribulation failed. It really is 50 million years per crossing the tribulation. Although Guan had mentally prepared himself, seeing such a great consumption made his heart sink. One prompt after another fell. The 10 billion years of lifespan rapidly depleted. All failed. Guan continued to invest lifespan. Since he had not achieved success in his breakthrough, the lifespan numbers consumed by the lifespan barrier grew very slowly. Outside the barrier, the void remained silent. The gray lotus flowers were so mysterious and eerie, like countless souls floating there. After a while, Guan saw that he had only 30 billion years of lifespan left and could not help but take a deep breath. Something wasn't quite right. Could it be that he was destined to fail this time? Guan didn't believe in bad luck. He planned to leave himself 5 billion years of lifespan. If he still couldn't break through by then, he would have to give up. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 50 million years. You forcefully strike at the golden immortal Tao fruit realm with the great achievement of the great Tao great freedom as you wish Bible and begin crossing the tribulation. You endured the reincarnation top Tao ultimate tribulation. Crossing the tribulation succeeded. Your Tao fruit transformed into the golden immortal Tao fruit. Your cultivation level broke through to the early stage of the innate golden immortal realm. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 100 million years. Your cultivation level grows. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 500 million years. your cultivation level breaks through to the middle stage of the innate golden immortal realm. You have practiced chi absorption cultivation for 1 billion years, your cultivation level breaks through to the late stage of the innate golden immortal realm. Innate golden immortal realm. Guan's face revealed joy, as he had finally broken through successfully. Continue to ascend. The lifespan barrier began to vibrate, and terrifying, vast reincarnation spiritual chi surged towards Guan. In an instant, the lotus sea outside began to sway. Guan used 8 billion years of lifespan, and only then his cultivation level rose from the late stage of the innate golden immortal realm to perfection. He still had 12 billion years of lifespan left, enough for the lifespan barrier to consume. Billowing reincarnation spiritual chi entered Guan's body, and he also felt the reincarnation rules drilling into his being. As more and more reincarnation rules accumulated inside him, numerous images of reincarnation appeared before his eyes, all of which pertained to karmic connections he had with others. He saw the reincarnations of figures like Yang Jian, Xiaochuan, Lu Jujia, and Yi Yan. He also saw the past lives of Yi Lan and Ji Xiaoyu. Too many images bombarded his vision, yet his expression remained unchanged, and it did not affect his Tao heart. He even began to comprehend the path of reincarnation through this experience. Countless gray lotuses swayed, as if the entire void was about to collapse, possessing a kind of chaotic beauty. Far away, the reincarnation mist churned more violently, as if unimaginable terrifying fierce beasts were about to devour everything. Guan suddenly sensed something and glanced towards the darkness. Indeed, there is a powerful presence. Is it a living spirit or a lost soul? Or perhaps, does this place harbor a special existence beyond life and death? Guan wondered to himself, sensing an aura not inferior to that of the profound Yuan-free immortal. And to think this was only the beginning of his breakthrough. Even more powerful entities might emerge later on. He dared not completely immerse himself in the breakthrough, keeping part of his mind outside the barrier, ready to move at a moment's notice. Under the mysterious starry sky, before the celestial Tao golden core, the young immortal emperor was sitting in meditation, his back to the celestial Tao golden core, with a mini sun floating behind him, burning with golden flames that made him appear akin to a sun god. The sun is the most perfect creation of the heavenly Tao. Any place bathed by the sun is considered a blessed land favored by the heavenly Tao, but there are also strong and weak suns, and Hao stood not far away, looking at the celestial Tao golden core and musing. The young immortal emperor did not open his eyes, but he asked, "How powerful is the sun the heavenly Tao has blessed you with?" And Hao replied, "I don't need the sun from the heavenly Tao, I want to create my own sun." The corners of the young immortal emperor's mouth curled up, and he no longer continued the conversation. After a while, the young immortal emperor suddenly felt something, his eyes snapped open suddenly, and even Hao turned his head to look into the distance. The starry sky showed ripples as if a lake's surface was disturbed, making the entire cosmos seem so illusory, like the moon reflected in the water, ready to shatter at any moment. What is this anomaly? And Hao asked with a frown. Although he had experienced the celestial Tao reincarnation, he had never seen such a phenomenon in this space before. This space consisted of the power of the heavenly Tao, independent of the celestial spirit great world. The young immortal emperor's brows also furrowed. Ever since he first entered this secret realm, 5 million years had passed, and he had never seen such an anomaly. In his eyes, this secret realm was even the safest place in the world. Now seeing the distortion in the starry sky, he felt an inexplicable panic. Could it be that an even more terrifying existence was about to arrive? He began to calculate with his fingers, but even he, having reached the level of the Taoist Zhangzizai immortal, could not discern anything. Not only in this secret realm, but distortions also began to appear in the celestial vault in various places throughout the celestial spirit great world. The silent extinction domain in outer heaven was even more turbulent with spirit mist, oppressively dense. More and more locations began to experience spatial anomalies, thereby affecting the entire universe. Deep within the silent extinction domain, seated on a throne, Yi Tianji opened his eyes. He looked up and saw visible spatial distortions in the dark void. Is this disturbance in the path of reincarnation? Yi Tianji murmured to himself and looked in another direction. That way lay the world gate. He saw beneath the world gate a towering figure appearing, a powerful form gleaming with white light, as if representing supreme authority. The celestial spirit god. Chapter 493, Tao Fruit Blossoms Reincarnation Chaos. He has even been alerted, Yi Tianji withdrew his gaze, his eyes flickering, suddenly feeling that the waters of celestial spirit great world were very deep. Whether it was to search for the celestial Tao golden core or to pursue the descendants of the Long clan, both had become difficult. Could it be that the descendants of the Long clan escaping to this realm was not by chance? Was the mysterious supporting Tao sword venerable merely a sign? What dark forces were hidden behind all this? Yi Tianji looked again at the twisted void, feeling that a mysterious and powerful being was manipulating everything behind the scenes. If he could feel this, not to mention all living beings within the various realms of existence. In a forest within celestial spirit great world, Zhu Shi stood on a tree branch, looking at the twisted celestial vault, her brow furrowed. Reincarnation in chaos, could it be the hidden danger from that entrance? The Yuanshu ancestor of the immortal dynasty opened the reincarnation vortex, allowing the celestial spirit great world direct access to reincarnation, and many cultivators used the reincarnation vortex for reincarnation trials, or to flee to other realms. In Zhu Zai's view, this was an act that disrupted the order of reincarnation. Indeed, chaotic anomalies had now appeared. Zhu Shi suddenly thought about escaping from celestial spirit great world, but her cultivation level simply could not break free from the heavenly Taoist limitations. It seems I can only go to that place to fight for a chance of survival. Zhu Shi thought this way and then leapt down from the tree branch, walking towards the depths of the forest. On the other side of the world, on a throne inlaid with treasure swords, Zhu Luo Sword Monarch also gazed at the celestial vault. Around him was a large hall without a ceiling, with great swords standing along the edges, their tips pointing skyward, their edges sharp and exposed. Looking at the ceaselessly twisting celestial vault, Zhu Luo Sword Monarch also sensed that the reincarnation rules were in flux, which made his gaze fall on the reincarnation vortex. What exactly is happening there? Zhu Luo Sword Monarch felt puzzled. He then lowered his head, looking at the 8 existing treatises on heavenly Tao floating before him. He was just one treatise away from obtaining the true immortal inheritance. Originally he was not in a hurry and wanted to enjoy the process, but now with anomalies appearing in reincarnation, he worried that his cultivation level would not withstand future situations, especially since he had heard that the supporting Tao Sword Venerable had left the Supreme Sect over 100 years ago. If supporting Tao Sword Venerable had indeed fled celestial spirit great world, he could not afford to be careless. Zhu Luo Sword Monarch pondered for a moment and immediately stood up. With a wave of his right hand, he gathered the 8 treatises on heavenly Tao into his sleeve, then vanished from the spot. While all living beings were anxious about the anomalies in the celestial vault, this was just the beginning. When the nature's spiritual energy began to descend, the beings were about to face true panic. In the land of reincarnation, the gray lotus sea, Guan was seated on a lotus, surrounded by gray mist, with golden light spilling out from within. His eyes closed, he was in the midst of the creation of innate golden immortal. The top of his Tao fruit had cracked open, and a bud was growing out, while the golden light around him was the light of a golden immortal, and the gray mist was the innate chi condensed from spiritual energy and the Tao rules. Upon closer observation, one could see his entire person slowly shrinking. It was an indescribable state of profound mystery. His cultivation level was soaring, striking towards a higher realm. Above his head emerged a chi sea, continuously expanding and annihilating, that was the image of Luotian. Breaking through heaven encompassing free immortal, returning to the innate state, and sculpting a golden immortal body. Although Guan had not completely broken through yet, he had already acquired many memories about the innate golden immortal. Upon reaching the innate golden immortal realm, the Tao fruit transformed, and both body and soul were reshaped. From then on, the cosmic space could no longer restrain him, and moving through the cycles of yin and yang reincarnation became effortless. As an immortal, golden immortals were stronger than free immortals, and after the Tao fruit of the golden immortal blossomed, it could even create a new world, establishing its own world rules, birthing all living beings and continuously undergoing reincarnation, thereby allowing the Tao fruit itself to grow continuously. So much fortune and profound mystery were produced by the golden immortal Tao fruit, aiding Guan in better understanding the 3,000 great Tao. During this process, Guan truly felt the vastness and unfathomableness of the great Tao. The great Tao was omnipresent. One could feel its presence upon stepping into the immortal Tao realm, existing quietly without posing any threat to cultivators, but the higher one's realm, the more one could perceive the gap with the great Tao. The eternal and indestructible great Tao was even more stable than the heavens, earth, and the universe. The so-called rules of heaven and earth were also evolved from the great Tao according to the heavens and earth, but the gap between the rules and the great Tao was vast, like the difference between the flame rules and the path of fire. Though they seemed identical, they were fundamentally different. When Guan was immersed in creation, a pair of dark red eyes appeared in the darkness, swirling with reincarnation spirit mist, followed by an immensely huge dragon head. This dragon head was pitch black, with blood-red horns and floating whiskers that dispersed the spirit mist, covering a million gray lotuses just by poking its head out. The 100-meter lotus beneath Guan appeared minuscule in front of this dragon head. He sensed the appearance of the dragon head, opened his eyes, and his eyes shot out golden light, which did not pass beyond the lifespan barrier. The dragon head swept over the top of Guan's head, followed by an immensely shocking dragon body. This dragon body was actually a murky yellow river, thousands of miles wide and with an immeasurable length. Looking at the yellow river, Guan could not help but think of the netherworld from the Wuxia mythology. Heaven encompassing free immortal. Guan thought silently. He sensed that this dragon's cultivation level was comparable to that of the heaven encompassing free immortal, yet its aura was different. When he sent out lifespan detection, he received no response. This indicated that this dragon was not a living creature and might even lack its own will, but merely possessed a powerful aura. Eventually, the yellow river black dragon disappeared at the other end of the Lotus Sea. Guan did not ponder deeply and continued to experience the mysteries of the innate golden immortal. As he absorbed more and more reincarnation spiritual chi and reincarnation rules, the anomalies in the land of reincarnation intensified. Gradually, Guan condensed into a golden core, the innate chi around him dispersed, leaving only the light of the golden immortal. The golden core he transformed into was small and trembled slightly. Boom! Suddenly, a huge booming sound appeared above as rolling spirit mist surged past, flowing unstoppably. Within that spirit mist were countless departed souls, both human and demon. They moved so fast that without careful observation, one could not see the departed souls inside. Countless departed souls converged into a vast sea, sweeping away as if to split the entire land of reincarnation. A golden light drove away the darkness, and a golden Buddha appeared, sitting on a golden lotus, advancing through the sea of departed souls. He was so majestic, not inferior in momentum to the previous yellow river black dragon, and even possessed an additional aura of sanctity. This golden Buddha did not linger but followed the sea of souls into the darkness and disappeared. Afterward, continuously powerful existences swept across the Lotus Sea. Fortunately, no one attacked the Lotus Sea. Time swiftly passed. The golden core transformed by Guan trembled more violently until cracks appeared on its top, and a new sprout emerged, quickly growing and causing the cracks on the golden core to expand. Chapter 494. Tao Fruit World Golden Core sprouted. The cracks at its top continued to expand, and the newly born bud grew rapidly, as the reincarnation spiritual chi around it began to pour into the fissures of the golden core, forming a vortex of airflow. Once the bud had grown to a certain stage, it began to bloom. At the same time, the golden core beneath it suddenly shattered, and Guan's body appeared, naked and pristine, resembling the most perfect creation in the world. His form began to grow larger as he transformed from his original physique. The Tao fruit within him bloomed as well, evolving into a golden immortal Tao fruit, signifying a successful breakthrough. From this point, he had become an early-stage being of the innate golden immortal realm. His mana transformed into innate magical power, vast like the boundless primordial waters at the dawn of chaos. The phenomenon caused by the lifespan barrier reached another stage, affecting all the heavens and myriad realms, with the spiritual energy of many worlds sinking and the Tao rules of outer heaven twisting. The major forces of various worlds began to act, investigating the cause or preparing to flee. Yes. This was the scene playing out in many parts of the great heaven and earth. Even the supreme sect in the celestial spirit great world was thrown into disarray, with LV Badian even leading people into the third Medicine Valley, seeking to find Guan's whereabouts. They hoped an Exan could contact Guan, and if not, at least reveal to them the truth behind the heavenly phenomenon to put them at ease. Regrettably, an Exan knew nothing, and after much maneuvering, LV Badian and the others could only leave with heavy hearts. Long Qing came to Anzin's side, looking together in the direction of LV Badian and the others leaving, and asked, "Senior sister, is Master really going to leave Supreme Sect?" This time Guan's departure had been so long that even the disciples within the Third Medicine Valley began to worry he would leave the Supreme Sect. An Exan looked toward Long Qing and asked with a smile, "If Master were to leave, how would you choose?" "Of course I would follow. What other choice could there be?" Long Qing answered without hesitation. Anaxian followed up, "If you follow Master, you will never be able to enter the mortal world for the rest of your life. You can only cultivate in a place isolated from the world. Would you be willing to do that?" Long Qing fell silent. Anaxian said, "You can cultivate diligently now because you wish to achieve a higher cultivation level, but if you attain it, could you remain as focused? Don't rush your answer. I'm talking about a lifetime, countless years." Long Qing opened his mouth, but no words came out. In one's life, isn't the purpose of cultivating to enjoy a better life? To him, life meant integrating with society or with the immortal cultivation realm. At this moment, other disciples in the valley were discussing their futures. If their master truly left, what path should they take? It was a matter they had to consider. The celestial vault above was still distorting, occasionally showing unusual rainbows, and the earth's spiritual chi continued to sink, causing the ground to tremble slightly. The tense atmosphere between heaven and earth was still intensifying. It was unknown how much time had passed. Naked, Guan slowly opened his eyes and instinctively pulled up the consumption page of the lifespan barrier, only to find that he had expended 500 million years of lifespan. His cultivation level had reached the middle stage of the innate golden immortal realm. He still had nearly 700 million years of lifespan left. The next breakthrough, wouldn't the consumption of the lifespan barrier amount to several billion years of lifespan? Guan felt a sense of awe in his heart, but he did not feel any regret, as he had already reached a very high realm. How many beings spend their entire lives unable to reach the Zizai immortal realm, let alone cross the Tao fruit realm? Guan continued to wait for his cultivation level to increase. He had gained a certain understanding of innate golden immortal. As the Tao fruit blossomed, the great divine power nurtured in it, the longevity true words, underwent a transformation, and according to his plan, it engendered even more mysteries. As for the world cultivated by the Tao fruit of the golden immortal, it must be studied further. And whether his own world planted with medicinal herbs could seize lifespan was unknown to him. The world nurtured by the Tao fruit was intrinsically a part of him. There was no seizing lifespan from oneself for oneself. Moreover, this world could not directly bring external objects into it and required a lengthy evolution, not an instant formation. The world of a golden immortal could be illusory or real. If it could not increase his lifespan, he would not allow the golden immortal world to become reality but keep it for cultivation of the great Tao. Guan looked up and saw, in the depths of the darkness, another colossal entity, its aura on par with a perfected profound yuan-free immortal. Indeed, the land of reincarnation was more terrifying than the universe. During his breakthrough, he had already encountered many auras of profound yuan-free immortals, and even those of heaven-encompassing free immortals. He hoped not to encounter an innate golden immortal. Having just broken through to this great realm, Guan did not wish to immediately encounter a being of the same realm. He found he still could not perform lifespan detection on the formidable beings that appeared. It seemed the land of reincarnation had no living creatures. No, not just non-living. Wait. Guan suddenly realized something and felt a chill run down his spine. Could it be that the land of reincarnation he entered was the Tao fruit world of some powerful being? Hence, everything he saw was close to a real existence in an illusory world? He had previously detected beings without lifespan, at least managing to ascertain their realm, but now he could not even detect the realm of those passing by. Guan's wariness of the land of reincarnation surged, but he was within a lifespan barrier and not afraid. If there really was some kind of will behind this illusory world that he had alarmed, it would have acted already, not leaving him to speculate until now. The universe has celestial spirit gods, and the land of reincarnation harbors even more mysterious entities. All things considered, the celestial spirit great world is safer. Guan thought to himself, deciding that he would still establish his lifespan dojo in the celestial spirit great world, just not in the supreme sect. He planned to hide again in the secular world, waiting for an era to pass. Given the current cosmic situation, a battle court invasion was inevitable, which might even alarm the celestial spirit gods. Guan didn't want to expose himself or be seen as a thorn in the side of these powerful beings. Moreover, with his non-interference, the evolution of the cosmic situation wouldn't progress so swiftly, giving him more time to grow stronger. Perfect, they've long wanted to venture out into the world. Guan's lips curved into a smile, and his mood brightened at the thought of the 3 celestial demon children. He closed his eyes and continued to wait for his cultivation level to increase. About an hour later, his cultivation level had reached the perfection of the innate golden immortal realm, with just over 100 million years of lifespan remaining. He rose to his feet, and his robes materialized on his body, followed by a belt, immortal king crown and other items. After dressing himself, while the reincarnation phenomenon was still present, he stepped forward and directly entered the reincarnation vortex. With another step, he landed within the mountains and rivers of the celestial spirit great world. Standing on a cliff, he faced the wind, then raised his arms, basking in the earth's spiritual chi breeze. The celestial vault was still distorting, and the wind existed because of the sinking spiritual energy. Yet he, the one who caused all these phenomena, had finished his breakthrough as if it was all unrelated to him. Having become an innate golden immortal, the celestial spirit great world seemed small to him. He could pay attention to all things simultaneously, and if he willed it, the rate of all things evolution before his eyes could dramatically slow down. He exercised his limbs for a while, then turned to descend the mountain. The reason for coming to these mountains was their remoteness from the immortal dynasty and holy court, lying on the edge of the celestial spirit great world and comparatively peaceful relative to other areas. There was even a town not more than 10 miles away, and within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, the level of immortal cultivation was low, without a single being of the immortal Tao realm or demon. Most importantly, a person from his past had reincarnated here. After entering the forest, the phenomena began to subside. The chirping of insects in the woods gradually resumed, and sunlight filtered through the leaves to the ground, forming patches of light. Chapter 495. Mountain Immortal, Battle Court Attack. In an open area of the forest, 5 children were sitting by a stream, resting. Among them, the tallest boy sat on a rock, holding a vine in his hand, his gaze fixed deep into the mountain woods, his eyebrows tightly knit. A girl in tattered clothes turned her head to look at the boy on the rock and asked, "Big brother, how much farther do we have to go? Let's not run into demons later." The other 3 boys chimed in agreement. They were all tired from walking and wanted to go home for a meal. The boy known as Big Brother was named Yi Xiaoyang. He glared at his companions and said, "What demons? We're here to seek immortals. If you're sincere in your heart, you'll encounter spirits. What's the rush? We've hardly walked any distance at all." Tang Monk had to travel 81,000 li to retrieve the scriptures. Upon hearing this, the 3 boys looked even more pitiable. "But even if you're Tang Monk, we're no Sun Wukong or Zhu Beiji. Yeah, I'm so hungry. Big brother, can you bring more cakes next time we go out?" Yi Xiaoyang was infuriated. He jumped off the rock, ready to chastise his companions, when the sight ahead caught his attention. He stared with wide eyes, completely petrified. The girl in rags turned her head to look as well, equally frozen in place. Seeing the 2 of them react like this, the other 3 turned to look, following their gaze. A handsome man in white emerged from under the shade of the trees, a treasure sword at his waist, a delicate crown on his head. Together with his peerless handsome face, he appeared like an immortal descending to the mortal realm. An immortal, truly an immortal. One of the boys murmured to himself, unable to help but rub his eyes. The newcomer was, in fact, Guan, who cast lifespan detection at Yi Xiaoyang. Yi Xiaoyang, unrefined Qi 14/85/4999. His maximum lifespan is not bad. Lu Jujia has been born into a good life this time. That's what Guan thought to himself. Then he proceeded to deploy lifespan detection at the other 4 children. He discovered that their maximum lifespans were also quite impressive, with the shortest being 3,000 years. A cluster of talents? Guan stopped across the stream and with a gentle smile asked, "Little fellows, what are you doing here? Aren't you afraid of running into bad people?" Yi Xiaoyang snapped out of his trance, asking excitedly, "Are you the immortal from the mountains?" The other 4 also looked at Guan nervously and expectantly. Guan, instead of answering, countered with a question, "Do you want to cultivate toward immortality?" At his question, the 5 kids, boys and girls alike, became even more excited, replying in a flurry, "Of course we do. Big brother, please teach us. You must be an immortal. I've never seen anyone like you. Yeah, big brother, we really want to cultivate toward immortality." Seeing this group of lively, excited children, Guan, who was already in a good mood, grew even more delighted. It was hard to see such vivacious kids in the 3rd Medicine Valley. Guan cleared his throat with a cough and said with a hint of mystery, "I do know a bit about immortal cultivation. But if I teach you, can you promise not to tell anyone else, including your families?" At his words, the children, without a second thought, immediately agreed. "Come here tomorrow and I will impart to you the art of immortal cultivation," Guan said with a smile, his gaze then drifting to the celestial vault. The battle court had begun to stir again. They were targeting young immortal emperor, with the provocation of worldly unusual phenomena also playing a part. The battle court feared an unprecedented catastrophic reincarnation calamity was upon them, one that might overturn all heavens and myriad realms, so they wished to seize the celestial Dao Golden Core before that and also to slay Long Qing. They were afraid Long Qing might escape into the reincarnation, having previously evaded them that way. Long Qing's ancestors had even utilized reincarnation to flee all the way from outside the universe to this cosmos, using the celestial spirit god to foil their plans. This time, how would Yang Immortal Emperor withstand the battle court? The celestial Dao Golden Core could not grant him greater power. Hearing Guan's words, Yi Xiaoyang and his friends suddenly got anxious, feeling as if Guan was deceiving them. Despite Guan's persuasion, they could only suppress their anxieties and head back home. Yi Xiaoyang took a few steps, then couldn't help but look back, seeing Guan standing by the stream with a smile, watching him and his friends leave. He felt inexplicably dazed. For some reason he felt a kinship with Guan, an attachment so strong that it filled him with reluctance to leave right now. He feared that once he left, he might never see Guan again. Yi Xiaoyang opened his mouth wanting to say something. Guan looked at him and smiled, "Hurry back home. Tomorrow I'm still waiting for you guys to tell me the story of Journey to the West." At these words, Yi Xiaoyang's heart settled down. He chuckled and quickly turned to catch up with his companions' retreating figures. As Guan watched them leave, he thought to himself, the name Pan and Sure has spread widely. Not just Journey to the West, but the investiture of the gods and romance of the three kingdoms have also made their way to this land. Guan saw the driving force behind this. Someone wanted to open up the aspiration for immortal cultivation among the mortal spirits of this land. Guan didn't care too much. A cultivator of the profound heart realm couldn't influence his decision to open the lifespan dojo. He didn't return to the supreme sect, but instead, he walked in another direction. He was going to choose a suitable place to open the lifespan dojo. When the time came, he would move the world excluding Cave Heaven and the 8 scenic Cave Heaven there, hiding them underground. As for the 3rd Medicine Valley, Profound Valley, End of the World Valley, Mountain God Temple, he wouldn't touch them. He would just occasionally go to harvest medicinal herbs. He wanted the people of the Supreme Sect to gradually get used to life without him so that when he truly left, the Supreme Sect wouldn't collapse. Once the dojo was established, he could let the celestial demon child and the other 2 girls move around in the woods, no longer confined to the world excluding Cave Heaven. In the depths of the void, countless figures were flying, surrounding a colossal palace with 9 suns floating above, radiating dazzling heavenly might. Yi Tianji, the master of the battle court, sat on his throne, with the image of the celestial spirit great world reflected in his eyes. A man with wings stood on the palace, also looking towards the distance. He turned his head to speak to Yi Tianji. That Yang Immortal Emperor is merely at the Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal's cultivation level. There's no need for you to take action. Just send another person to join forces with me. The Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal who had invaded the Immortal Dynasty before was him, defeated by the Yang Immortal Emperor, which left him feeling humiliated and eager for revenge. Yi Tianji, expressionless, said, "No need. Make this operation quick. Kill those who should be killed, take what should be taken, then return." The reincarnation phenomenon of the past 2 days had unsettled him, and recalling the legends of the celestial spirit great world from before, he felt he could delay no longer. The winged man held his tongue upon hearing this. His gaze was suddenly drawn to the 9 suns above Yi Tianji's head. He saw mysterious figures within the suns, flickering in and out of visibility as if they were in another dimension. That is, the winged man's pupils suddenly constricted, his heart churning with shock. He hadn't expected Yi Tianji to summon them. Could there be some terrifying existence hidden within the celestial spirit great world that he didn't know about? Was it the supporting Dao sword venerable? The winged man looked away, his gaze returning to the direction of the celestial spirit great world. The mighty army of the battle court moved forward through the void, as if nothing could stop them. Meanwhile, in the celestial spirit great world above, numerous figures suddenly appeared on the celestial Dao light layer. Great cultivators from every corner noticed the arrival of the battle court. An indescribable sense of oppression was enveloping the celestial spirit great world. The higher one's realm, the faster they felt it. This reminded many of the time when the profound desolate demon god had attacked. Elsewhere, Guan was in the 3rd Medicine Valley, sitting in his chair, listening to an Xian recount the recent events within the Medicine Valley. After an Xian finished, she asked with a hint of grievance, "Master, when exactly are we leaving? If we're not leaving now, it's difficult for me to face them." Guan smiled, "Why are you in more of a hurry than I am?" You don't have to face those people from the sect. Have you chosen someone? Let's go with Longqing. I can see that he doesn't want to retreat from the world with us. An Xan casually replied. Unlike the others, she truly wished to put aside mundane affairs and enter prolonged cultivation. Guan smiled. All right, then it shall be him. His prompt agreement surprised an Xan. Master, didn't you say he carries a great cause and effect? Are you sure you can trust him to handle things on his own? An Xan curiously asked. Exactly what great cause and effect Longqing carried, not to mention himself. An Xan was also very curious. Guan answered, it doesn't matter. The great cause and effect he's carrying will dissipate soon. Chapter 496. The world grows dark, disperse? What does that mean? An Xan asked curiously. She had watched Longqing grow up and considered him her own child, naturally wishing him a lifetime of peace. The so-called great cause and effect sounded like a deep-seated vendetta, so how could she not worry? Guan gave her a look and said, why so many questions? When your cultivation level is higher, you will naturally understand everything. An Xan pouted and said, isn't that why I'm waiting for you to take me away? Once we find a quiet place, I'll seclude myself for 1,000 years, 10,000 years. When I emerge, I will surely be an enlightened master. In her perception, 10,000 years was an incredibly long time. She believed that if she cultivated for 10,000 years in the human world, she would definitely be considered a powerful being. Guan didn't discourage her but instead said, let Longqing prepare. An Xan nodded, raised her hand in a salute and then turned to leave. Although she was very close to Guan and often bickered with him, she never forgot the proper courtesies when needed. An Xan left the house, closed the door behind her and then walked down the stairs. A female disciple passing by asked curiously, Big sister, the master isn't here, what are you doing going up there? An Xan replied, even though master isn't here, I still have to manage things. We can't let the master return to find the house full of dust. The female disciple felt that made sense. She stepped forward, linked arms with an Xan and began to sigh, wondering when the master would return. An Xan casually comforted her, and the two walked off into the distance. The third medicine valley was still bustling, the disciples busy with their own tasks, unaware that a disaster was about to strike. As time passed, more and more beings felt the terrifying pressure from the battle court. When the disciples of the third medicine valley felt the pressure from the battle court, chaos had already erupted across the world. Most living beings did not know where the pressure was coming from and felt only fear. They fled in panic, finding that no matter where they ran, the pressure only increased, amplifying their fear. Guan saw that the young immortal emperor and the saint minister hastened to outer heaven. They were preparing to negotiate with the battle court. The oppression from the battle court this time was even stronger than the profound desolate demon god before, wearing down even the confident young immortal emperor and the ambitious saint minister. Especially the young immortal emperor, he felt that no matter how much he gave, he would always face an insurmountable enemy. For the saint minister, he could no longer care about his ambitions, focusing only on how to lead the holy court through the difficult times ahead. Xingtian had already abandoned them. What was the holy court's next move? That night all beings found it hard to sleep. The next morning, Guan arrived early at the forest, waiting for Yi Xiaoyang and his 4 companions. He sat on a rock by a small stream, looking up at outer heaven, where the young immortal emperor and the saint minister faced the profound Yuan-free immortal in a grand hall. The negotiation appeared to be going poorly. Guan was not interested in the profound Yuan-free immortal seated above. He was curious about the 9 suns. The 9 suns hid 9 profound Yuan-free immortals, the suns acting like some sort of gateway, the spaces connected originating from other universes. From the aura of the great Tao emanating from within, Guan could tell they did not come from this universe, and each originated from a different universe. What puzzled Guan more was why the celestial spirit god wasn't taking action. The celestial spirit god was meditating in front of the world gate, previously absent, clearly drawn by the disturbance caused by Guan's breakthrough. Could it be that the battle court had reached some sort of agreement with the celestial spirit god? Guan could determine that there was no direct connection between the celestial spirit god and the battle court because the celestial spirit god had a dense aura of celestial Tao destiny, which was not the kind of destiny that belonged to the battle court. Meanwhile, on the massive battle court, the young immortal emperor and the saint minister stood side by side, looking up at the formidable Yi Tianji like they were gazing at a deity, the light from the 9 suns illuminating their faces, highlighting their grim expressions. The grand hall was surrounded by floating figures, all sneering at the young immortal emperor and the saint minister, as if they were looking down on reptiles. The Saint Minister took a deep breath and said, "We indeed do not know who the descendant of the Long clan is, and there are countless incarnations of heavenly demons among the heaven and earth. As for the celestial Tao Golden Core," he glanced at the young immortal emperor, then turned to Yi Tianji and said, "If the celestial Tao Golden Core were to leave the celestial spirit great world, the celestial spirit great world would shatter. How is that different from killing us directly?" Yi Tianji was expressionless and said, "The difference is you can live. At this point, do you still want to save others?" The Saint Minister furrowed his brow. If he really only cared about his own life, he could have escaped from the celestial spirit great world long ago. At this moment he could only place his hopes on the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. He was just trying his best to stall for time, waiting for the supporting Tao Sword Venerable to make his move. The young immortal emperor spoke up, "Aren't you afraid of the heavenly Taoist backlash?" Yi Tianji snorted, "Heavenly Taoist backlash? It seems you don't know what heavenly Tao really is. Indeed, a mere mortal trying to reach for the celestial Tao immortal position has deceived you all in the great heaven and earth. It's truly sad, but it's also the fault of that being." Upon hearing this, the young immortal emperor wanted to ask more, but Yi Tianji continued, "Enough, no more stalling. It seems the supporting Tao Sword Venerable you are hoping for has already left." While the Saint Minister was delaying, Yi Tianji was also waiting. Before coming here, he knew about the supporting Tao Sword Venerable's feat in annihilating a split body of the silent destruction god Emperor. He was sure that the supporting Tao Sword Venerable must be the profound Yuan Free Immortal. For this, he even specially invited 9 fellows of the same realm to help. Although he didn't say it out loud, he was actually very wary of the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, so he didn't make a move immediately, wanting to see what the supporting Tao Sword Venerable had to say. However, the night had passed, and the supporting Tao Sword Venerable had made no move. Yi Tianji guessed that the supporting Tao Sword Venerable might have been scared away by the reincarnation phenomenon. It was normal, given that the phenomenon capable of causing such fear was unimaginable and certainly not something the profound Yuan Free Immortal could match. As for whether it was the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, he never even considered that possibility. He learned from the 9 fellows above him that other universes also had such phenomena, with an unimaginably vast scope. The faces of the young immortal emperor and the Saint Minister changed drastically. They hadn't expected Yi Tianji to know what they were waiting for. Yi Tianji raised his right hand, and seeing this, the young immortal emperor immediately began cultivating energy. The powerful aura of the Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal suddenly burst forth, and the Saint Minister of the Zizai Immortal Realm, standing next to the young immortal emperor, lacking the strength, was immediately pressured to retreat in a flash. The creatures surrounding the grand hall in the battle court all turned and faced the young immortal emperor, their auras likewise bursting forth. Even the young immortal emperor, a Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal, changed color at their intensity. He had long felt that the surrounding creatures were powerful, but he hadn't expected that many would have a cultivation level higher than his own. How were they supposed to fight now? The young immortal emperor looked towards Yi Tianji, his face intensely uneasy, his eyes filled with a chilling look as he tried hard not to show any signs of fear. Yi Tianji's smile was wild and contemptuous as he directed the palm of his right hand towards the celestial spirit great world. In an instant, the entire celestial spirit great world shifted abruptly from daytime into nighttime, with neither the bright moon nor the stars visible. Walking through the forest, Yi Xiaoyang and his 4 companions screamed in fright, hurriedly hugging each other, no longer daring to move forward, with some even scared to tears. The cultivators and demons standing on the celestial Tao light layer were utterly horrified. Under their watchful eyes, an indescribable giant hand descended from above the universe, stretching towards the celestial spirit great world. The vast and boundless celestial spirit great world seemed like a small pebble in front of this giant hand, about the size of a finger. From far atop the grand hall, both the young immortal emperor and the Saint Minister stared in shock. The descendant of the Long clan, it's time to awaken. Yi Tianji's voice resounded throughout the celestial spirit great world. Under the darkness, his voice seemed like that of a demon god from the abyss, instilling endless terror into all living beings. In the 3rd Medicine Valley, Long Qing was looking up at the night sky when he suddenly sensed something and abruptly clutched his head as a flood of memories burst forth from the depths of his mind, assaulting his spirit. He had never felt such intense pain in his head before, as if it were going to explode. In pain he then knelt on the ground. As the world had already darkened, everyone else was watching the night sky, and no one noticed his abnormality. How could this be? Long Qing gritted his teeth and murmured to himself, struggling as he saw himself fighting and slaughtering across a realm filled with the blood of all living beings, his world tinged with red. Chapter 497. Is this the battle court you take pride in? Guan heard Yi Tianji's words but did not take action. He watched Yi Tianji help Long Qing awaken his past life memories. It's time for this young man to face his own destiny. If Guan had helped him recover his memories, Long Qing might still have entertained some hope. Now that Yi Tianji was helping him awaken the memories, Long Qing realized just how heavy the causality he bore was. Guan couldn't take care of Long Qing forever. Long Qing was already over 1,000 years old. It was time to face his destiny. The fate of the Long clan, though tragic, was also wrought with many evil deeds. Their downfall was lamentable yet seemed only natural. Of course, there were good people in the Long clan, but because of Long Zhan, the clan was prone to producing violent individuals. Just like Long Qing, Guan could see that in his past life, Long Qing had also committed evils. Guan defended Long Qing from the battle court as a favor for Long Zhan. Moreover, since the battle court was no good either, destroying it would mean Guan was thoroughly erasing the causality left by Long Zhan. The battle court was created by Long Zhan, and Long Qing was his only descendant. Guan felt it necessary to reverse this bad karma. Besides, if he did not intervene, the celestial spirit great world would probably not withstand the battle court's assault, which was not something he wanted to see. Guan looked up at the night sky, his divine sense locking onto Yi Tianji, as he examined the deeper causality of the battle court. The battle court that had descended upon the celestial spirit great world was merely a branch, just as the silent destruction god emperor before it. The real battle court was being blocked outside the world gate. If Guan were to destroy this branch of the battle court, then it would mean a fight to the death with the real battle court. To this he was not afraid. What he dreaded was only the group of immortal gods, not the battle court. The causes that arise from me shall be eradicated by me. Guan looked at the night sky, thinking so, his face as calm as ever. In the void, atop a grand palace. The young immortal emperor and the saint minister trembled as they looked at the terrifying giant hand above the celestial spirit great world. They had no will to fight in the face of such a hand, only a sense of despair. Even though the young immortal emperor had glimpsed such a vision in the celestial Tao golden core, when he saw it for real, he was chilled to the bone. How vast was the celestial spirit great world, yet it seemed insignificant before this colossal hand. The young immortal emperor turned his head, looking at Yi Tianji, and with gritted teeth asked, "Who exactly are you all and from where have you come? If you want us dead, can you at least let us die in the know?" Yi Tianji's right hand was half raised. Upon closer examination, his hand's shape was identical to the giant hand above the celestial spirit great world, intensifying the pressure on the young immortal emperor. Facing the young immortal emperor's inquiry, Yi Tianji sneered, "Then I shall satisfy your curiosity. We come from the battle court. My name is Yi Tianji and I possess the power to discern heavenly secrets. The destinies of both of you lay clear before my eyes. You are destined to die without even the hope of reincarnation." The battle court. The saint minister seemed to remember something, his eyes revealing a horrified expression. The young immortal emperor, however, fell silent. Not that he had chosen to surrender without a fight, but because a domineering power suppressed him, leaving him immobilized. All he could do now was wait for his death. He didn't even dare to use the power of the celestial Tao golden core, fearing Yi Tianji would detect its existence. Finally found it, it really was under the care of the supporting Tao sword venerable. Yi Tianji suddenly said, redirecting the thoughts of the young immortal emperor and the saint minister. The supporting Tao sword venerable became the only hope in their minds. They clung to this lifeline like drowning individuals, their eyes lighting up. Yi Tianji then lifted his left hand, reaching toward the palm of his right. But at that moment, a hand suddenly landed on his shoulder, causing his heart to jolt violently, and his pupils to dilate. In his view, the young immortal emperor suddenly grew larger. Not just the young immortal emperor but everything around became enlarged. No, it was he who had shrunk. His gaze drifted sideways unconsciously, and from the corner of his eye, he saw a figure shrouded in a dark purple demonic chi. It was this figure's hand pressing down on his shoulder, shrinking him to the size of a mortal. The battle court beings around the grand palace turned their gaze to him, figures appearing out of thin air before Yi Tianji, surrounding Guan who had performed the celestial dark purple micro Saint Tao body. The celestial dark purple micro Saint Tao body was a transformation of the demon shadow divine skill, possessing an even greater mystery and creation. Guan had chosen to appear in this form, wishing to intervene under the identity of the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. He was unconcerned about being surrounded by 9 profound Yuan-free immortals. Even if he stood still, those 9 profound Yuan-free immortals wouldn't be able to breach the defense of the celestial dark purple micro-Saint Dao body. Gu An's eyes settled on Yi Tianji. Yi Tianji, late stage of the profound Yuan-free immortal realm 1-209-827-298/30, 0000000/50, 0000000, a 12 billion year existence. A lifespan of 30 billion years. Not too bad, worth taking action for. Gu An's gaze flickered towards the 9 venerable profound Yuan self-free immortals around him, only to discover that he could not conduct lifespan detection on them. That indicated these 9 were not their true forms. Their auras seemed just like that of living spirits. No wonder those 9 suns connected to other universes. They were merely some special power transmission channels. For their true bodies to come here, they probably needed to pass through a world gate. Seeing Yi Tianji shrink, Yang Immortal Emperor was momentarily stunned and then saw Gu An's figure. Supporting Dao Sword Venerable. Yang Immortal Emperor became excited, ecstatic with joy. The distant Saint Minister followed his gaze, equally surprised. His senior had indeed taken action. Yi Tianji glanced at Guan with a taut heart that gradually calmed and coldly said, "Supporting Dao Sword Venerable, you truly have taken action. What exactly is your relationship with the Long clan?" The 9 venerable profound Yuan self-free immortals all around emitted black gas, their true faces obscured, as mysterious as Guan. They didn't speak, but their mana had already formed a barrier to prevent Guan from escaping. Guan could even feel their invisible power attempting to probe the surface of his celestial dark purple micro-Saint Dao body, but they simply could not achieve it. "I have said, do not involve all living beings. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from," Guan's voice sounded, hoarse and ice-cold, with utmost killing intent that brought Yi Tianji's recently stabilized emotions of terror surging back. Yi Tianji felt the same as Yang Immortal Emperor. Unable to move. Mana nearly solidified inside. How could this be? Could it be that he has surpassed the profound Yuan self-free immortal realm? Yi Tianji suddenly sensed danger. He had estimated Guan to the highest degree, yet Guan was even more powerful than he had anticipated. What brought profound Yuan self-free immortal to this shattered great thousand world? Yi Tianji couldn't understand, and at the same time he felt Guan had no relation to the Long clan. The Long clan did not possess such a powerful being. If they did, how could they end up in such a plight? In an instant he thought of many possibilities, even considering Guan as an enemy of the battle court. Fellow Taoist, do you truly wish to oppose the battle court? With such cultivation level, hidden in the shattered great thousand world, for what reason? The descendants of the Long clan aren't worth your concealment here. Could it be that you came for the celestial Dao Golden Core? Laughable, for the sake of all living beings? If all living beings aren't here, why the pretense? The surrounding 9 venerable profound Yuan self-free immortals spoke in succession, their tones full of hostility. In their view, Guan did not come to protect all living beings but purely aimed to interfere with the actions of the battle court. Guan slowly raised his head, looking down upon them. Boom! A golden light burst forth from within him, in an instant scattering the 9 venerable profound Yuan self-free immortals. Dao protecting divine essence. And he had unleashed it with the full force of the perfected profound Yuan self-free immortal realm, enough to disperse these not true form beings. The black gas exploded, drifting in front of Yi Tianji, whose pupils suddenly shrank, his face revealing disbelief. The battle court powerhouses around the Grand Hall were also scared, retreating en masse, distancing themselves from the Grand Hall, including the man with double wings who had previously battled with Yang Immortal Emperor, not daring to get close. Guan looked down, gazing at Yi Tianji, and said, "Is this what you're proud of, your battle court?" Yi Tianji, enveloped by fear that penetrated his Dao heart, opened his mouth to speak when a terrifying karmic force came from all around, instantly annihilating him. Physical form annihilated, soul and spirit scattered, even his karma wiped clean. The entire void fell silent at once. Yang Immortal Emperor, looking up at Guan standing high, was dumbstruck, his body trembling non-stop. The Saint Minister was equally shaken. When Yi Tianji's oppressive force suddenly vanished, he collapsed to the ground, his gaze fixed upon Guan, as if a mortal spirit looked up to a god. Chapter 498. Sword Against Sword, the time-transcending struggle of Sword Dao. You have successfully seized 2,809,837,622 years of lifespan from Yi Tianji, profound yuan-free immortal, late stage. Looking at the prompt before him, Guan's mood improved and he looked up. The warriors from the battle court maintained their distance, staring incredulously at the grand temple. Yi Tianji had vanished directly under Guan's hand, making it feel surreal for them. In their minds, Yi Tianji was so powerful, how could he have died so easily? It wasn't until the giant hand above the celestial spirit great world suddenly dissipated that the warriors of the battle court snapped back to reality. Our Lord has fallen. How is that possible? Who is he exactly? And those divine envoys too, bad news? Run. It can't be, absolutely impossible. The battle court exploded into chaos with many warriors promptly fleeing. Guan's right foot shifted slightly, and in an instant several warriors from the battle court burst apart, turning into mist of blood that spread across the void. Since he was taking action, how could he not earn some more lifespan? However, he wouldn't kill all these creatures from the battle court. Doing so would seem like a vendetta. He wanted to continue maintaining the image of someone acting on behalf of all beings of the celestial spirit great world. Randomly selecting a few creatures from the battle court to eliminate was an unfortunate fate that befell them. One prompt after another appeared before Guan, making his mood even more delightful. Protecting all living beings while profiting himself, how could he not be pleased? Young Immortal Emperor and Saint Minister still stood in place. Despondent as the warriors of their battle court were so easily defeated in front of supporting Dao Sword Venerable, they felt both excitement and despair. They thought about their own ambitions and previous schemes, and suddenly felt how ridiculous their past selves were. At the same time, they admired supporting Dao Sword Venerable even more. Possessing such strength yet still interacting gently with them demonstrated a powerful attitude of kindness towards the weaker. Soon the void fell into silence again. Guan felt many powerful divine senses sweep across but quickly withdraw. This battle eventually did alarm some beings of great power in the depths of the universe, yet no one dared provoke Guan. They even regretted their curiosity, fearing being targeted by Guan. Without interacting with Young Immortal Emperor and the other, Guan soared up, collecting 9 suns into the palm of his hand, and then headed towards the depths of the universe. The creatures of the celestial spirit great world returned to daylight, and as the oppressive terror enveloping the world vanished, they began to communicate, discussing what exactly had happened. Even without clear understanding of the events, they felt like they had narrowly escaped a disaster. Long Qing was still kneeling on the ground, holding his head with both hands, gasping heavily in extreme agony. Eventually people noticed his condition and gathered around. Even an XN was drawn over. Watching supporting Dao Sword Venerable disappear into the depths of the universe, Saint Minister approached Young Immortal Emperor, frowning. Has he left? Young Immortal Emperor glanced at him asking, why do you say that? Supreme Sect is widely spreading that supporting Dao Sword Venerable is leaving them. It's been over 100 years since he last returned. This time, Saint Minister hesitated. He had spies within Supreme Sect and thoroughly knew their every affair. On hearing this, Young Immortal Emperor frowned. Standing in Guan's place, he too felt that Guan might grow weary. From his understanding, Guan was indeed a great cultivator who lived in seclusion and coveted nothing. Just the thought of such a great power leaving the celestial spirit great world made him feel uneasy inevitably. Could the reincarnation phenomenon from a few days ago portend an even more terrible calamity? Both Young Immortal Emperor and Saint Minister fell into silence while the grand temple of the battle court completely submerged into darkness, losing all light. In the darkness, Saint Minister mournfully said, regardless of whether he leaves or not, his deeds today must be known to all. That so-called heavenly Tao has never helped us, only he has shouldered everything. Even though Young Immortal Emperor, endowed with the celestial Tao golden core power, harbored no fondness for the so-called heavenly Tao, he replied, I think so too. Even if he does not return, even if we eventually face the end, at least while we are alive, we should be grateful to him. In the dark void, Guan stepped forward, toying with 9 golden pearls in his hand. These were the previous 9 suns, encapsulated with an abundance of power of the great Tao. He was washing away the causality within them. His journey deep into the universe was not to deliberately mislead the 2 Young Immortal Emperor, but for other reasons. He halted his stride and said, You've been watching for a long time, isn't it time to show yourself? As his words fell, a silver-blue sword chi appeared through the thick heavenly Tao mist ahead, swiftly transforming into a human figure. This was a man dressed in a blue Taoist robe with hair white as frost, a crown atop his head resembling a sword scabbard, his back against the darkness, emitting an ancient and vicissitudinous aura. His gaze was exceedingly sharp, standing there like an eternal divine sword, immortal through the ages. Sword God, early stage of heaven encompassing free immortal realm 0/0/0. Age, current lifespan and maximum lifespan all 0. Either it's a flesh and blood avatar or not a living being, similar in nature to divine exotic ghost king, bereft of lifespan and freedom, bound to some formidable power in exchange for eternal life. Guwen stared at the sword god, feeling somewhat sentimental. This sword god was precisely Yang Xian's disciple Yang Pingan. Compared to the Yang Pingan of reincarnation memories, this sword god was more vicissitudinous, radiating a twilight aura, yet his sword intent in his eyes was stronger than what Guwen remembered of him. In a sense, Yang Pingan had surpassed Yang Xian, who died only as a profound yuan-free immortal. Yang Xian, a 300,000-year-old profound yuan-free immortal, thinking back, his talent was terrifying to the extreme, even without relying on evolved lifespan. Not to mention celestial spirit god, the sword god Yang Pingan was the first heaven-encompassing free immortal Guwen had encountered. Guwen had earlier sensed Yang Pingan's sword chi, albeit fleetingly. Re-encountering his former disciple in a past life, Guwen's feelings were complex. The sword god raised his right hand, using his finger as a sword chi spilling from the tip. He stared at Guwen and said, "Your sword Dao is strong, the opponent I've been seeking." Guwen, maintaining his celestial dark purple micro Saint Dao body, the sword god unable to see his expression, confusedly asked, "Opponent? I traverse the great thousand world, seeking strong sword Dao practitioners, all to achieve the strongest sword Dao, and you are qualified to be my opponent." The sword god's tone was devoid of emotion, but as his words concluded, a vast sword intent enveloped the void. Guwen distinctly felt the celestial spirit god beneath the world gate open its eyes, staring at them. The previous commotion at the battle court failed to attract the celestial spirit god, but the sword god's sword intent did stir e'en immortal, enough to prove the sword god's might. Such domineering sword intent. Guwen raised his right hand, and the celestial star sword granted by Li Ya appeared in his grasp. This sword, regarded as a divine weapon in the mortal world, was less sturdy here than a meteor, yet as Guwen's sword chi covered the blade, this sword from the mortal world became the sharpest sword in the universe. The sword god's expression subtly changed, and for some reason, he felt a sense of familiarity emanating from Guwen. He lowered his right hand, sword chi directed downward as if holding a sword. The void dimmed, the great Dao mist surged, their confrontation causing fluctuations in the space. "Let me see how strong you've become after enduring such long eras." That was what Guwen thought. Yang Xian's only wish before death was to spar with his disciple to elevate his sword Dao. Unfortunately, the celestial spirit god hadn't given him the chance. "You remind me of someone from the past, I will not hold back." The sword god spoke, his sword intent suddenly erupting. The surrounding great Dao mist was instantly obliterated, absolute darkness threatening to engulf them, yet unable to swallow their sword light. Sword against sword, this was a confrontation of sword Dao across the ages. Chapter 499. Establishing a dojo. When the sword god's sword intent erupted, Guwen glimpsed into his past through it. During the lengthy ages, that series of peak sword battles continuously pushed the sword god's sword Dao to even higher levels. After defeating an opponent, he would devour their sword Dao, thereby enhancing his own sword Dao. The sword god raised his right hand, pointing his sword chi at Guwen from afar. In an instant, countless sword shadows appeared from the darkness behind him, radiating different sword intents like a starry sky suddenly alight. The vast sword light shone on Guwen, yet it could not expel the demonic chi emanating from his celestial dark purple micro Saint Dao body. Guwen then raised his sword, pointing the celestial star sword directly at the sword god. As he lifted his sword, an incredibly grandiose silver sword shadow appeared behind him, rapidly solidifying, colossal as the heavens and the earth. If one were to move the celestial spirit great world over, they would find it to be only half as long as this sword. Eternal infinite divine sword. The ultimate swordsmanship evolved from the Li family swordsmanship. Guwen did not use Yang Xian's sacred heart sword Dao, fearing the sword god would recognize it. Even without the sacred heart sword Dao, he was confident he could defeat the sword god. Even if they were at the same realm. Having merged the memories of Long Zhan, Lu Han, Zhu and Yang Xian from past lives, Guwen had effectively become these individuals. Coupled with his own lifespan evolution investment, his strength was unfathomably profound. Apart from the unsolvable Zhu within the same realm, Guwen felt it very unlikely for him to lose, especially since he was not in the same realm as the sword god. The imposing sword intent of the eternal infinite divine sword was like the universe's sharpest will, causing the sword god to furrow his brow slightly. The sword god did not underestimate Guan, but he was still frightened by Guan's sword intent. "What is the name of this sword, Tao?" the sword god asked. "Eternal infinite divine sword." Guan pointed his sword at him, and the eternal infinite divine sword in its state of simplicity and truth burst forth with a dazzling bright light, illuminating half the universe's void. After the sword god muttered, "Eternal infinite divine sword," he promptly waved his hand and his sword chi slashed out. The endless sword shadows behind him also erupted into vast sword chi, sweeping toward Guan. Meanwhile, the celestial spirit great world had just regained sunlight and began to tremble, and the beings who had survived the calamity were once again startled, particularly the sword cultivators of the world and the Jianghu swordsmen, whose swords buzzed ceaselessly as if ready to unsheath at any moment. Zhu Luo sword monarch, who was pondering the theory of heaven, looked up in disbelief. "What a domineering sword, Tao, and there are actually two," he murmured to himself. His divine sense quickly reached out into the universe, but his divine sense retracted soon after, and his right hand followed to clutch his chest. His sword Tao had rebounded. Had his reaction not been fast enough, his sword Tao might very well have disintegrated. Though he could not see the figures of Guan and the sword god, he could only see the two vast sword Taos. Even without seeing the masters of the sword Taos, Zhu Luo sword monarch guessed. It must be the supporting Tao sword venerable and the sword god. He had previously guessed that the sword god had come to this universe, but now that the two were actually clashing, he was again astonished. What level of achievement in sword Tao was needed to possess such vast momentum? The celestial phenomenon lasted for less than 10 breaths, and the heavens and earth quickly returned to calm. However, the beings did not dare take it lightly and remained tense, fearing a greater catastrophe might descend. Elsewhere, in the woods, Guan sat on a rock by the stream, pulling up his attribute panel. Name, Guan, lifespan, 2-144/7-907-228-501, physique, primordial infinite body, cultivation level, innate golden immortal realm perfection, 79 billion years of lifespan. Before today his lifespan had only been 1 billion years, and now it had soared by 78 billion years in one breath. Thanks to the battle court, Guan felt grateful in his heart. It was still through killing enemies that lifespan came quickly. Before, he had accumulated a lifespan of 100 billion years, which had taken him so many years. However, he was just thinking about it and would not go on a killing spree as a result. The lessons from lifespan reincarnation were already abundant. The reason he could grow steadily to this day was that he had concealed his ability to seize lifespan. He even suspected that silent destruction god emperor was so obsessed with the Long clan precisely because Long Zhan grew stronger through slaughter. Perhaps the silent destruction god emperor thought that members of the Long clan could rapidly become stronger through killing, which was why he continuously possessed the descendants of the Long clan. Guan then thought of the sword god he had just clashed with. To prevent his identity from being exposed, Guan had severely injured the sword god. After the sword god escaped, he would probably need many years to recover, but at least he would not die. Whether it was the identity of Long Zhan or Yang Xian, Guan did not want to expose any of them. Lifespan reincarnation was much more advanced than any reincarnations he had come into contact with so far. Lifespan reincarnation could project into the past, the future, and even alter destiny, which was terrifying. Should this matter be exposed, Guan would undoubtedly attract the wariness of more powerful beings. He saw the sword god enter the river of sword Tao and disappear. The river of sword Tao, the river of destiny, the river of time, and others were all existences independent of the universe, accessible only through the great Tao. They were dangerous and mysterious, and whether they could lead to other universes was still hard to say. Perhaps the sword god had come through the river of sword Tao. But Guan felt that the world gates were not for show. To cross universes, one always had to get past the celestial spirit god. Time passed quickly in Guan's thoughts. An hour later, all the beings of heaven and earth finally relaxed. Although they did not know what had happened, the return of tranquility to the world was a good thing. After a little less than half an hour, Yi Xiaoyang and his 4 companions finally arrived at the agreed-upon location. When they saw Guan, they were all pleasantly surprised and immediately rushed over. 3 youths burst into tears on the spot, having been scared out of their wits by the sudden darkness that had fallen over the world. Guan watched them with a smile and did not comfort them, letting them vent on their own. Yi Xiaoyang turned to Guan and asked, "Immortal, do you know why the sky suddenly darkened earlier?" Guan shook his head and said, "How would I know? I only know a little about the art of immortal cultivation. You really think I'm an immortal? This world is much bigger than you think. It will be more interesting for you to explore on your own than to ask me." Upon hearing this, Yi Xiaoyang fell into endless daydreams. Once they had calmed down, Guan began to teach them the method of qi refinement. The talents of these 5 were not bad. In less than half a day, all had cultivated a thread of spiritual power. It was not until evening that Guan let them go back. Compared to their first farewell, the 5 felt more relaxed, believing that Guan truly intended to teach them. After watching them disappear into the depths of the forest, Guan headed in the opposite direction. With one step he arrived thousands of miles away. This place was rarely tread by mortals, abundant in spiritual energy with more plant demons than beast demons. Guan arrived at the top of a high mountain. He stood on the edge of a cliff, his mind moved and he began to create the lifespan dojo. "Please choose the range of your dojo," a prompt appeared and Guan instantly made a decision. He marked off an area with a radius of 5,000 miles in one go. "You will need to consume 500 million years of lifespan. Would you like to continue?" 500 million years of lifespan, not too bad, acceptable. Guan was actually afraid that this thing would consume a huge amount of lifespan, even an endless amount. If that were the case, he could only give up on the lifespan dojo. As his thoughts concluded, he distinctly felt the space fluctuating. At the same time, a vast amount of memories flooded into his mind. He could control everything in the dojo as easily as he could his own hands. Moreover, he needed to store lifespans in the dojo to fend off powerful enemies. The maximum defensive strength of the dojo equaled his cultivation level, and with each assault it encountered, a corresponding amount of lifespan would be deducted. Guan hesitated for a moment before storing 10 billion years of lifespan in the dojo. In the celestial spirit great world, there would be no one capable of attacking his dojo. The reason he stored 10 billion years of lifespan was just in case. Chapter 500. The person who should not exist, Celestial Court. After establishing the dojo, Guan immediately teleported the world-excluding cave heaven into place, setting it underground. The dojo was a spherical space buried in the soil reaching up to the sky. Guan deliberately placed most of the space beneath the ground so the underground area was larger than that above. After moving the world-excluding cave heaven, he didn't proceed to relocate the 8 scenic cave heavens but instead called out the 3 celestial demon-child sisters. The 3 sisters passed through the ground, and as soon as they emerged, they were captivated by the surrounding mountainous scenery. Their eyes widened as they looked around. Standing at the edge of the cliff overlooking them, Guan said, "From now on, the land within 1,000 miles is my dojo. You will all live with me here in the dojo from this day forward." Upon hearing this, the 3 sisters were overjoyed as they could finally live with Guan every day. "In a few days others will come. You won't be alone. If you wish to go out for a walk, I won't stop you, just don't go too far." Guan's next words piqued their curiosity even more. For over 2,000 years they hadn't met any other beings, but now they eagerly anticipated meeting new people. The 3 sisters immediately flew to Guan's side, chirping away with endless questions. Guan answered patiently, his face brimming with smiles. Seeing them so happy made him feel content as well. 15 billion years of lifespan had not been spent in vain. In the following days, Guan moved the 8 scenic cave heavens and mountain of 10,000 swords from the 3rd Medicine Valley, taking an Xen blood prison great saint and white spirit rat with him. Afterward, he went back to the profound valley alone, summoning Jiang Shi and Xingtian to inform them of his departure and prepare to disperse the disciples of the profound valley. As soon as the teacher and disciple heard this, they immediately knelt down and begged Guan to take them with him. Guan feigned hesitation before asking if they were willing to give up their freedom. Both agreed. Guan deliberately waited a few days to allow the 2 to dismiss the disciples. After all the disciples had left, Guan then teleported the entire profound valley away. Supporting Tao Sword Venerable had departed. This event eventually spread within the Supreme Sect, causing a significant stir. The 3rd Medicine Valley also experienced a brief tumult, with Long Qing taking over as Valley Master to prevent the disciples from feeling disheartened. The Supreme Sect's higher-ups began to ingratiate themselves with Long Qing, believing that he would become a go-between with Gu and supporting Tao Sword Venerable was sure to return. Meanwhile, the Holy Court and Immortal Dynasty announced the truth about the calamity from a few days prior to all the world's people. The words "Battle Court" spread rapidly, and supporting Tao Sword Venerable's merits were widely publicized. In this era where the heavenly Tao was the ultimate truth, The name supporting Dao Sword Venerable made beings feel it was even stronger and more trustworthy than the heavenly Dao for the first time. One evening, Shenzhen stood on the cliff, gazing at the still bustling Third Medicine Valley with her eyebrows furrowed and eyes filled with grievances. Beneath her veil, she bit her lip, silent. "What are you thinking about?" A familiar voice came from behind, startling Shenzhen as she swiftly turned around. Upon seeing Guan, her eyes sparkled with surprise. How are you here?" Shenzhen began to express her joy, but she held back, asking with a scoffing tone instead. Guan smiled inquisitively. "I feel my dojo lacks a scribe. Without her writing, the dojo would be quite dull. Would you like to come?" Shenzhen's eyes immediately crinkled in laughter. She put her hands on her hips and asked, "You still have a dojo? Aren't you leaving this great heaven and earth?" "Yes, I am leaving far, far away. Would you like to come with me? If you're unwilling, I won't insist." Guan was amused by her posture. He could hear her heart speaking. The girl felt greatly wronged internally. She even muttered some things that gave him goosebumps. "You came to invite me personally, so I have to go." Shenzhen raised her chin in pride. "Do you need to say goodbye to your family?" "Forget it, I've been away for 2,000 years. Our bond has long since been severed. They haven't written to me in 1,000 years." Shenzhen said nonchalantly. Hearing this, Guan didn't ask further and simply waved his sleeve, taking her away. A breeze blew past, leaving no trace of their footsteps. Shenzhen only felt darkness before her eyes, and when she opened them again she was still standing on a mountain, but the scenery in front had changed abruptly. She just happened to witness in Xingtian and Blood Prison great saints sparring figures, battling fiercely in the sky, casting various spells with ease, a truly spectacular sight. The wind stirred up by their combat blew her veil, causing her eyes to widen involuntarily. "Elder Shen, you came too?" A voice of surprise came through, only to see an XN appear out of thin air beside Shenzhen. Shenzhen turned her head to look at an XN and was secretly astonished. Such quick speed. Suddenly she found an XN gave her an unfathomable feeling. She subconsciously looked back at Guan, relieved to see that he was still there. "It's not an illusion realm. An XN take care of her." Guan dropped these words and then turned and left, preparing to make a trip to the North Sea mountain ridge. Shenzhen just wanted to speak when Guan disappeared on the spot. An XN covered her mouth and laughed. "Stop staring, your eyes will fall out. In the future you'll see him day and night until you grow tired of it." Shenzhen turned her head to look at her, unable to refrain from asking, "What place is this exactly?" The setting sun was desolate and beautiful, with strong winds rising. An XN turned and looked toward the distant continuous mountains, her gaze becoming evasive. "This is Master's dojo, he calls it Wuxia." Under the starry sky, the mountains undulated, the hills were covered with white bones, devoid of flowers, grass, or trees. A sword chi suddenly appeared on the hillside, followed by the figure of the sword god, who sat cross-legged, surrounded by sword shadows. His face was deathly pale, with even golden cracks appearing, as if it were about to split open at any moment. "You failed?" An old voice sounded, echoing through the mountains, lingering for a long time. The sword god remained silent, his eyes tightly shut, clearly enduring immense pain. "Eternal infinite divine sword? Such a domineering sword intent. However, this sword Dao still doesn't compare to yours. It's only that the man's strength is greater than yours. This difference in sword Dao is insurmountable." The old voice sounded again, filled with emotion. Not long after his words fell, an elder clad in a white robe with white hair appeared behind the sword god. He was barefoot, emanating a faint white light as if he were an immortal ready to ascend at any moment. He raised his right hand, extending 2 fingers touching the back of the sword god's neck. The sword god's clothes began to flutter violently, as sword chi surged from the starry sky, like a tornado pouring into the sword god's body. The white-haired elder uttered in surprise, seemingly sensing something. The sword god opened his eyes, asking, "What? Even you can't drive it away?" The white-haired elder spoke. "Though I cannot see its form, I can confirm, this is Lu Qixian's Dao Destruction Destiny Seal. That person must have a connection with Lu Qiuxian." The sword god frowned, his eyes full of confusion. "Lu Qiuxian, like you, is attached to the river of the great Dao. However, he is even older than you. Who knows how many destinies are intertwined in his long life? It's normal that you can't calculate it." The white-haired elder spoke with a sense of loss, but then a smile appeared on his face, asking, "Encountering such a sword Dao master is a good thing for you. You've won too many times, it's about time you lost." At least this time your opponent didn't finish you. From their sword intent, it would not be difficult to completely destroy you. The sword god took a deep breath and said, I know. I don't hold a grudge against him, it's just that he makes me feel like a person, like someone who shouldn't exist. The white-haired elder couldn't help but shake his head, speaking, Your master died a long time ago, why be so obsessed with him still? No, you don't understand. I have a feeling that although my master is dead, he still exists. The strengthening Sacred Heart Sword Tao in the River of Sword Tao is the best proof. The sword god looked up at the starry sky, his gaze unwaveringly firm. The white-haired elder sighed, no longer speaking. After a while, the sword god withdrew his gaze, asking, A celestial Tao golden core has appeared in the shattered celestial spirit great world. It's very likely left by the celestial spirit ancestor. Don't you wish to resurrect? This is an opportunity. The white-haired elder laughed softly. The celestial spirit ancestor's golden core is not easy to take. Do you think the celestial spirit god stands guard there for nothing? The so-called celestial Tao golden core is just bait. After so many eras, I didn't expect the celestial court to still not give up. Chapter 501. 1,000 years, 10,000 years. The morning sun penetrated the mountain forest, shining on the stream, sparkling with light. Guan still sat on that rock. A year had passed since he left the supreme sect, and the Taoist field of the beginningless was already filled with various grades of medicinal herbs. It wouldn't take many years before his yearly income from lifespan would increase. Surpassing the peak would not be difficult. Xian, Shenzhen, and others also began to cultivate in seclusion, and Guan taught Yi Xiaoyang and the other four each day outside the dojo. Yi Xiaoyang and his group had to climb mountains and wade through waters back and forth every day. Initially, it was very tough, but after a year of cultivation, they had grown accustomed to it, even considering this journey as part of their cultivation. While waiting for them, Guan was watching Zhen Qin. Since Yi Lan passed away, Zhen Qin had been continuously gaining experience and opportunities outside, yet, regrettably, she was still about to face her life's limit. And she was still a long way from reaching the Nirvana realm. Zhen Qin seemed to sense her celestial mandate, preparing to take revenge on the ghost mother of ephemera. The death of Su Han had always been a thorn in Zhen Qin's heart. Her reason to cultivate was also to avenge her senior brother. Su Han, oh Su Han, you thought you were being kind, but have you ever considered that due to your kindness, your junior sister would carry a millennium of vengeance until her death? Guan murmured to himself, lamenting human nature and fate. Su Han's corpse had long been moved by him from the Nianchu cave mansion to the world-excluding cave heaven, currently resting in a cave within the dojo. His soul had gone with the reincarnation long ago, but since his corpse was well preserved, Guan could use causality to seek his reincarnated soul. He hadn't wanted to do so, but seeing that Zhen Qin was about to reach her end, he was considering whether to fulfill his disciple's regret. Just as Guan was pondering this, a piercing sound came. Young Yi Xiaoyang, a year older, charged forward with a wooden sword, swooping like a bird through the forest. Guan raised his hand, circled around his own neck, and caught the tip of the wooden sword between his fingers. Yi Xiaoyang was forcibly stopped, landed on his feet and subconsciously fell backward. He looked up at Guan and shook his numbing right hand, exclaiming, Master, you are so powerful, are you a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator? Guan stood up, taking the wooden sword in hand and chuckled, You found out. With your little skill you still think of ambushing your master? Yi Xiaoyang straightened his neck and said, What do you mean by ambush? I just wanted to show Master my cultivation progress. At that time the other four also arrived. Bowing to Guan taught them not only cultivation techniques but also proper etiquette and the principles of conducting oneself. In just 1 year he had imbued these five with a spirit of chivalry. Even with their cultivation levels and spells, the five did not bully the common people. Instead, they supported the weak and opposed the strong. They had already gained a good reputation within 100 miles of their hometown. Seeing that everyone had arrived, Guan tossed the wooden sword to Yi Xiaoyang, saying, Today I will teach you the sword control technique. Upon hearing this, the five were not very excited, as the sword control technique did not sound like a very formidable spell, especially since they practiced sword fighting regularly. Guan saw their lack of interest but did not say much, instead just began teaching the mantra. Inside the mysterious space, Yang Immortal Emperor walked towards the celestial Tao Golden Core, looking at the majestic and spectacular celestial Tao Golden Core, his eyes not as fervent as before. After the disaster of the battle court, he felt that the celestial Tao Golden Core could not grant him power to dominate everything, and heaven had no intention of saving all living beings. Whether it was the immortal dynasty or the holy court, most people felt a sense of mission to bear the destiny of all living beings. From the moment they stepped onto the path of cultivation, they had done both good and evil, but all felt that as long as they were powerful, they had to protect all living beings. The young immortal emperor felt the same. He believed he was destined to be the Lord of heaven and earth and must protect all living beings. He approached Hao, who was still meditating, comprehending the celestial Tao golden core. "Your master has left," young immortal emperor spoke. Upon hearing this, Hao immediately opened his eyes and looked at the young immortal emperor, furrowing his brows. The young immortal emperor continued, "He took a few of his disciples and left the celestial spirit great world, and your junior sister was also taken with him." Hearing this, Hao's tight brows relaxed and he asked, "It's good that he left. This world is becoming more chaotic. My master can save heaven and earth once or twice, but he can't always interfere, or sooner or later someone stronger than him will come. With junior sister following him, I can truly rest assured." Young immortal emperor shifted his gaze to the celestial Tao golden core and said, "Hao, I suddenly feel that this golden core doesn't represent the heavenly Tao." Hao looked at him, the firelight of the celestial Tao golden light shining on his face, his expression complex. "So, what do you intend to do?" Hao asked. He didn't believe in the heavenly Tao either. He pursued the celestial Tao golden core just to rapidly become stronger. The world's situation was unpredictable, and despite his strong talent, he also felt a sense of urgency. If he were to die on the path of cultivation, in 1,000, 10,000 years, no one in the world would remember him. Young immortal emperor slowly said, "I want to contend for the theory of heaven." After hearing this, Hao fell into silence. The mysterious space fell silent along with them, stretching their shadows long. Seasons changed from spring to autumn, and 5 years swiftly passed. The dojo was vast, but few lived there, and each day was quiet, which helped calm Guan's heart. Every day, teaching Yi Xiaoyang and the other 4, planting flowers and picking herbs, writing books, practicing calligraphy, Guan didn't find it boring at all. Instead, he felt fulfilled. 5 years passed, and Yi Xiaoyang and the 4 others had all reached adulthood and successfully reached the foundation establishment realm. In the scorching summer, within the forest, beside a little stream, Guan looked at the grown-up 5 and felt that time indeed flew by. "Master, I want to change my name and be called Yi Qingshan from now on," Yi Xiaoyang suddenly said, and the other 4 spoke as well. "I want to change too. My name will be Lin Chuan. My name will be Cheng Meng. I want to change my surname too, call me Gu Changxing." "You shameless, well then I also want the surname Gu Qingdao." Listening to their words, Guan smiled helplessly and didn't stop them. As the 5 changed their names, their fates too changed accordingly. Guan saw their futures. Guan cleared his throat and said, "You have all established your foundations. In a few years, you will surpass your teacher, and I do not wish to be surpassed. Don't come here anymore, go and seek a broader path towards immortality." Hearing this, Yi Qingshan and the others fell silent. They did not argue. In fact, they had wanted to leave for the last 2 years because they had come into contact with cultivators from the immortal cultivation realm and knew how vast it was, making their hearts yearn for it. "Master, we," Cheng Meng couldn't help but speak. Before she could finish, Guan raised his hand and said, "No need for filial gestures. I came here to isolate myself from the world to cultivate in peace. You have disturbed me for so many years, isn't it time to let me go?" Yi Qingshan immediately knelt down and kowtowed to Guan, the other 4 quickly following suit. Looking at Yi Qingshan, Guan thought of Lu Jiujia. Lu Jiujia's figure merged with Yi Xiaoyang's, transforming into a new person. Guan was not sad, he smiled and accepted their kowtows. Yi Qingshan stood up and said, "Once a teacher, forever a father. When we ascend to immortality and achieve the Tao, we will definitely come back to repay you." The others promised as well, and Guan waved them off with feigned impatience. The 5 bowed and took their leave. A few steps later, Yi Qingshan could not help but look back, just as he did the first time he parted from Guan. He saw Guan under the shade of the trees, the feeling of reluctance from his youth resurfacing. Now, stronger than he was 6 years ago, he was not swayed by emotions, quickly turning back to disappear into the woods with his companions. Guan stretched his arms and yawned. Twisting his neck, he said, "Finally sent them off. See you in 1,000 years." He turned and walked in another direction through the forest. Just as he stepped over the stream, a plump white spirit rat dashed out. It quickly shrank in size and landed on Guan's shoulder. "Master, are those 5 your disciples?" the white spirit rat asked curiously, still with the voice of a young boy. Guan laughed and said, "Of course they are, why do you ask? You only taught them for a few years before sending them away. I thought they were like the disciples from the Third Medicine Valley or Profound Valley. They will come back. They will accompany us for 1,000, 10,000 years, and you will have to be their support." "Really?" The white spirit rat widened its eyes in surprise. Chapter 502 Once yearned for dark clouds cloaked the sky, and a drizzle fell unceasingly. Between the mountains trees were toppled. Pits and holes covered the landscape, reeking of the burnt aftermath that extended for 100 miles, a testament to the battle that had occurred. At this moment 3 women stood in a standoff. Zhen Qin, Jiang Qiong and the ghost mother of Ephemera, each bearing injuries. The ghost mother of Ephemera, with disheveled hair, stood amidst the wreckage, her face smeared with blood as she scanned her surroundings, trapped by an array of 8 flags. Outside the formation, Jiang Qiong hovered in the air. Her injuries were not as severe as the ghost mother's, but her heaving chest betrayed her exhaustion. Zhen Qin stood atop a cliff, wielding a treasure sword, surrounded by spinning blades that glittered with golden light. She looked down at the ghost mother of Ephemera with a gaze cold as ice. The ghost mother of Ephemera turned to Jiang Qiong and gritted her teeth. "Sect leader, after I have supported you for so many years, do you truly intend to help an outsider kill me?" Jiang Qiong sneered back, "How do you know that she is an outsider and you are not?" The ghost mother of Ephemera took a deep breath and said, "Aren't you afraid of the supporting Tao Sword Venerable's return? Don't you know that she is the supporting Tao Sword Venerable's disciple?" Faced with Jiang Qiong's mockery, the ghost mother of Ephemera fell silent. Zhen Qin raised her sword and declared, "Ghost mother of Ephemera, today I shall avenge my senior brother Su Han." Upon hearing the name Su Han, the face of the ghost mother of Ephemera did not change. She lowered her head, seemingly resigned to her fate. Immediately Jiang Qiong cast a spell. The flags around the formation fluttered violently, whipping up a fierce wind that stirred chains of cyan to bind the ghost mother of Ephemera, who did not resist. Zhen Qin charged into the formation, her sword slashing through, its frosty light shattering the forest. With one slash, blood spurted and the head of the ghost mother of Ephemera floated into the air. Zhen Qin stood behind the ghost mother of Ephemera, slowly straightening up. She turned her head and saw not only blood spurting from her neck but also flames of a golden blaze. The soul of the ghost mother of Ephemera emerged, unable to escape from her severed neck. Zhen Qin, looking upon this, felt no joy, only a sense of relief followed by an overwhelming fatigue. Years had passed and she no longer hated the ghost mother of Ephemera. Avenging Su Han had become her obsession. Jiang Qiong descended from the sky, looking at the golden flames at the neck of the ghost mother. She clucked in wonder, "Are you trying to make her soul disperse? Where did you learn such an evil skill?" Zhen Qin, devoid of expression, replied, "To deal with an evil demon, one naturally uses evil methods." The soul of the ghost mother of Ephemera struggled in agony, silent, but her twisting form was horrifying to behold. A breeze passed, scattering the golden flames around her neck, which alarmed both Zhen Qin and Jiang Qiong, prompting them to instinctively look around. "Let's end it here. This life's grievances have been settled." A voice sounded, and upon hearing it, Zhen Qin stopped mid-sentence. This voice belonged to Guan. Jiang Qiong showed surprise and looked around in search of Guan. The soul of the ghost mother of Ephemera flew out from her corpse. Zhen Qin's sword was no ordinary sword, its slash severed all her lifelines, leaving her either to find a new vessel or wait for reincarnation. Her soul knelt beside her body as if paying homage to Guan. "You have 2 choices. Guan's voice spoke again, detached as if a god spoke. "Reincarnation, to let go of this life's karma and start anew the next life, or redemption, to lose your freedom and continue living." The ghost mother hailed from the Ephemera sect. Though not affiliated with the Ephemera sect that caused chaos in the Taitsong continent, she had harmed many in her lifetime, Su Han being only one. Even when she founded the Gathering Flower sect, she resorted to wicked methods. The reason why Guan offered her a choice was that, at her core, she believed she acted for the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, that she belonged to him. After following the Sword Venerable, she had indeed restrained her methods and attempted to incline towards goodness. Guan did not wholly shield her, not just because of Su Han, as Su Han had long since severed ties with him, but because she genuinely had committed evils. Stopping evil actions did not erase past deeds like smoke. One must bear the consequences of their choices. The ghost mother of Ephemera immediately looked up and shouted loudly, "I am willing to follow you, even if I lose my freedom forever." No sooner had her voice faded than her soul vanished into thin air. Peace then returned to all of great heaven and earth. Jiang Qiong pursed her lips and looked toward Jin Qin, offering comfort. Regardless, she is considered dead and probably won't be at ease in the future. Jin Qin took a deep breath and said, I know. Master said she wouldn't let her be free and she certainly won't. The blood prison great saint was the perfect example. When Guan said to make him a mount for 1,000 years, he indeed suffered for an entire millennium. Seeing that Jin Qin was not fixated on the matter, Jiang Qiong also felt relieved and then asked, What are your plans now? Jin Qin looked into the distance and replied, No plans. After her words fell, her body suddenly leaned backward. Jiang Qiong's eyes widened as she instinctively reached out. However, a hand moved faster to catch Jin Qin's shoulder. Jin Qin looked up and a smile appeared on her face involuntarily. Master, Jin Qin said weakly. Guan looked at her and sighed softly. Jin Qin had reached the last year of her maximum lifespan. Today's battle had thoroughly drained her vitality. Jiang Qiong was pleased to see Guan, but she didn't speak, choosing to give the time to the master and disciple. Jin Qin was too weak to speak and soon closed her eyes, her hand naturally falling. This made Jiang Qiong frown. Guan looked toward Jiang Qiong and said, The ghost mother of ephemera is dead, and the Gathering Flower sect must be personally managed by you. Jiang Qiong nodded and replied, I know, I will go back soon. She stepped forward, sizing up Guan and said, Everyone says you've left the celestial spirit great world, but I didn't think you were still here. I said to myself, how could you leave without telling me? Facing this woman who had greatly helped him in his early years, Guan said with a smile, If you ever run into trouble in the future, just call for me in your heart. He could hear Jiang Qiong's heart's voice and knew she was not one to leave the secular world, so he did not invite her to the dojo. Jiang Qiong stared at him and asked, Can I summon you if I miss you? Guan rolled his eyes at her and replied, I am very busy. Jiang Qiong huffed coldly and said, Take her away quickly, don't let her die. She couldn't see the end of Jin Qin's lifespan but she could feel her life force rapidly draining, a sure sign of ill. Guan nodded slightly then disappeared from the spot with Jin Qin. Jiang Qiong didn't leave immediately but walked toward the corpse of the ghost mother of ephemera. After working together for over 1,000 years, she didn't want the ghost mother's body to be left in the wilderness. Jin Qin had a very long dream where she returned to her youth, a time when she, Su Han, and Yi Yan lived carefree in Profound Valley. Back then they all aspired to reach the Foundation Establishment realm. When Jin Qin awoke, she opened her eyes to the blue sky. She sat up instinctively and then saw Guan sitting at a stone table not far away, with an ice coffin next to her. Seeing Guan, her heart settled down instantly. She stood up immediately, ready to go and pay her respects. But as soon as she stood up, she saw the scene inside the ice coffin and froze completely. She couldn't help but blink, but no matter how many times she blinked, the scene inside remained unchanged. How can this be? Jin Qin became agitated, her body shaking slightly. Inside the ice coffin lay Su Han's body intact. She looked back at Guan who was sipping tea not looking at her. In that moment, Jin Qin's heart was filled with emotion and shame, and 1,000 words were stuck in her throat, unable to be spoken. Chapter 503. A lifespan of 256 billion years. Guan and Jin Qin sat opposite each other and talked for a long time. After seeing Su Han's corpse, the burden and obsession in Jin Qin's heart completely dissipated, and she returned to her usual lively and clever self. The mentor and disciple talked about the past, endlessly, finding it impossible to cover all the old times. However, everything has an end, including life. When dusk fell, Jin Qin looked at Guan and said earnestly, Master, thank you for your care in this life. As a disciple, I've been incapable and have never repaid you. If there is an afterlife and I am worthy of repaying you, I surely will strive to do so. Unlike the ghost mother of ephemera, who, though dead, was not at the end of her natural life and could still possess another body to be revived, Jin Qin's fate had run its course, without any technique to turn back time. Guan smiled and nodded, saying, There will be an afterlife. Hearing this, Jin Qin showed a smile, her eyes filled with expectation. She then lay down on the table and whispered, Master, I feel a bit sleepy. May I sleep here for a while? Guan nodded and replied, Sleep, I will stay by your side. Jin Qin closed her eyes, mumbling, I suddenly miss Master Yi so much. It feels like she has been gone for a very long time. Guan's hand, which was holding a teacup, paused. He said nothing and continued drinking his tea. After Jin Qin fell asleep, Xinjin came over. She looked at Jin Qin about to speak, but her brow furrowed and she approached Guan asking, Are you okay? She knew Zhen Qin's place in Guan's heart, and thinking of how Yilan, Xiaochuan and others' deaths affected Guan, she couldn't help but worry. "I am naturally fine," Guan said, looking at her with a smile and gesturing for her to sit down. Shenzhen took a seat, her gaze constantly on Guan. As Guan poured her tea, he said, "Do you think it's absurd? Someone with my cultivation level, yet unable to control life and death?" Shenzhen was secretly surprised. How did Guan see through what she was thinking? She spoke truthfully, "Indeed, you are the strongest being in my mind. It seems like life and death should be trivial matters to you, but..." Guan laughed and said, "This means I am not the strongest being. There is a celestial mandate that governs all, and those I help already have good fates. I merely add a touch of splendor. You can glimpse the past and the future, but can you glimpse the celestial mandate?" Glimpse the celestial mandate? Shenzhen fell into deep thought. In fact, she was also confused about her own path of cultivation. She didn't enjoy sitting meditation and qi refinement. She preferred the arts and sought to improve her cultivation level through enlightenment, but inspiration was scarce, and her cultivation level had been stagnant for many years. Seeing that she was seriously contemplating, Guan did not disturb her. He looked towards the horizon, where the slanted sun was like blood, and the seas of clouds seemed ablaze. Looking at the celestial vault, Guan suddenly felt that the future he saw wasn't far enough. How high must one's cultivation level be to see to the end of this universe? Time flies like an arrow, and the years pass like a shuttle, slipping away never to return. A millennium is like a cloud of smoke, with worldly affairs vast like waves. Without the support of supporting Tao Sword Venerable's millennium, the celestial spirit great world faced no calamities from outer heaven, but internal strife remained intense. Ancient secret realms, Taoist fields, and the cave mansions of great powers emerged one after another, causing widespread deadly conflict among the realm's cultivators. Guan's Taoist field of the beginningless was now filled with medicinal herbs, and to this day, the lifespan provided by these herbs each year had surpassed 20 million years. Located at the edges of the world, the Taoist field of the beginningless on the nine-spirit continent had not faced any disturbance for 1,000 years. However, nearby human race cities were increasing and approaching the Taoist field of the beginningless. In that year, early summer, Guan stood on the edge of a cliff, watching Qin Chuan spar with the blood prison great saint. Qin Chuan, now of the nirvana realm level, was able to hold his own against the blood prison great saint, who was at the level of the loose immortal realm. The two combatants clashed in the sky, Guan establishing a barrier that allowed them to fight to their heart's content without affecting the dojo. After watching for a while, Guan lost interest and called up his attribute panel to take a look. Name, Guan, lifespan, 3-155/25, 660, 408, 118, physique, primordial infinite body, cultivation level, innate golden immortal realm perfection, a lifespan of 256 billion years. Guan planned to break through after reaching a lifespan of 100 billion years. After all, according to the trends of the great heaven and earth, the celestial spirit great world would be engulfed in slaughter for the next 10,000 years unless there was intervention from powers beyond the heavens. Such slaughter was not meaningless. Guan could feel that the number of all living beings in the world had decreased by 10% compared to 1,000 years ago, but this also gave rise to more talents and great powers. The most famous battle in these 1,000 years was the one between the Yang Immortal Emperor and the Ju Luo Sword Monarch for the theory of heaven, which ended in a crushing defeat for the Sword Monarch, who fled back to the Great Hong Sword Heaven, while the Yang Immortal Emperor, after collecting 9 volumes of the theory of heaven, went into seclusion. Guan peered into the Yang Immortal Emperor's fate through an Hao's Dao Destruction Destiny seal and found that the Emperor's destiny was transforming and his cultivation level was rising steadily. The Yang Immortal Emperor, being the Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal, meant that the Holy Court had almost no chance of victory, and Zhu Shi, the Saint Heaven reincarnation, was still wandering in the mortal world. Even after regaining her past life memories, she had no intentions of returning to the Holy Court. A figure approached Guan. It was the ghost mother of ephemera. She looked just like she did in life, but in reality her body was made of flowers and plants, no longer human. Now she was responsible for managing the medicinal herbs in Guan's dojo, since the others were occupied with cultivation, and an Xan had long since lost interest in managing affairs. "Master, we are running out of seeds," the ghost mother of ephemera said softly. Having experienced life and death, and after 1,000 years of settling, her temperament had become much more stable, starkly different from her past as the deputy sect master of the Gathering Flower sect. Guan glanced at Qin Chuan and said, There will be new seeds tomorrow. You should go and cultivate for now. The ghost mother of Ephemera immediately bowed and took her leave. Wait a moment. Guan spoke, and upon hearing him, the ghost mother subconsciously turned around, only to have a secret manual fall into her embrace. She accepted the manual and saw at a glance that it was a cultivation technique. Strive to reach nirvana as soon as possible. That way you can serve me for a longer time, Guan said before turning and walking away. A ripple of emotion disturbed the tranquility of the ghost mother of Ephemera's eyes. She watched Guan's retreating figure, her thoughts unknown. Guan walked out toward the dojo. 5 acquaintances were to arrive today and he needed to see them. The 5 acquaintances were Yi Qingshan and the others, whom Guan had taken as disciples because Yi Qingshan was the reincarnation of Lu Jiujia. After 1,000 years of adventure and countless trials, fortunately, all 5 were still alive. They had encountered an invincible adversary and had to return to their homeland. Guan could overhear their conversation. These friends were contemplating establishing a sect in their hometown to cultivate their own power and to benefit the locals. Although the relatives they remembered were no longer alive, the land had not changed. Guan listened as these 5 discussed their past experiences of cultivating with him, and Gu Changxing, that youngster, was actually sentimental, wondering if his master was still alive. All 5 believed that Guan had passed away, for in their memory, Guan was merely a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. Unless they faced a cultivation crisis or had stirred up enemies, why would anyone seek such a secluded place to hide? At the very least, it indicated that Guan had no mighty background or extraordinary talent. Reflecting on their master, they felt regret, wishing they had had the chance to repay him. Chapter 504. Never Give Up in the Woods. Yi Qingshan, Lin Chuan, Qing Meng, Gu Changxing, and Gu Qingdao moved forward while chatting, looking at the forest which felt both familiar and strange to them. They talked about the past millennium with deep emotion. Suddenly, Qing Meng said, "Do you think it's possible that Master is still alive?" At these words, the other 4 fell silent. Of course, they wished Guan were alive, but when they had left, the Master was still a cultivator at the Foundation Establishment realm. Judging by the cultivation speed he described, it seemed highly unlikely he could survive 1,000 years. Unless, of course, the Master had deceived them. After all, they had never truly understood his cultivation level. Isn't finding him one of the reasons for our return? Gu Qingdao, the youngest yet most composed of the 5, spoke up. He always felt that their master was not like ordinary people. After roaming the great heaven and earth for 1,000 years and witnessing countless exceptional individuals, he still felt his master was in no way inferior to any of them. Yi Qingshan spoke, "Now that we're back, establishing a sect can wait. Let's first look for our master." His words met with the agreement of the others. Even if their master were no longer of this world, spending several years in search for him was worthwhile. Gradually their conversation turned to their sworn enemies. Mentioning their enemies made their teeth itch. Their disciples and friends had been slaughtered by these foes, and they themselves had narrowly escaped death. Even with all the hatred, they had no means of revenge, as their enemies were cultivators of the immortal Tao realm, backed by a major sect. As they talked, they came to a small stream and were struck dumb. Lin Chuan couldn't help but ask, "Could this be the same stream from 1,000 years ago? How is it still here?" Yi Qingshan was somewhat bewildered, responding, "A millennium isn't enough for the great heaven and earth to undergo massive change, especially since there hasn't been sect conflict or demon mischief around here. Naturally, there wouldn't be much alteration." They looked around, recalling the past intricacies of their lives. After a while, the sound of footsteps came from deep within the woods across the stream, drawing the attention of Yi Qingshan and the others. They hadn't sensed the presence of humans or demons, so the sound of footsteps was certainly startling. Looking intently, they saw a young woman in green clothes, carrying a bamboo basket, walking out from the depths of the forest. Her beautiful face and pure aura were like that of a celestial maiden descending to the human world, leaving Yi Qingshan and the others stunned. The newcomer was an Xian. 1,000 years had passed, and an Xian had entered the Nirvana realm, her aura transcending the ordinary, while Yi Qingshan and the others were still stuck at the Mahayana realm, unable to find the opportunity for Nirvana. An Xian stood before the stream, smiling at them, awakening them from their reverie as they hurriedly bowed and made a fist-in-palm salute. "Senior, I am Yi Qingshan. 1,000 years ago, I cultivated here for several years. We have now returned in hopes of finding our master. Have we perhaps offended you in any way?" Yi Qingshan spoke first. After all, if someone had claimed this area over the past millennium, they would have no choice but to leave. He couldn't fathom Nzin's cultivation level. Thus he was sure she was an entity of the immortal Tao realm. Even just being a great cultivator at the lowest nirvana realm would be far beyond their ability to provoke. An XN laughed. I have been cultivating here for 1,000 years. Could your master's surname be Gu and his given name? At her words, the five displayed great surprise and answered affirmatively, eagerly inquiring about Guan's relationship with her. An XN answered, I have indeed met him. He is currently in closed-door cultivation. I have established a dojo in this area. I share a deep connection with him, so if you need assistance in the future, feel free to reach out to me. Hearing that their master was in closed-door cultivation, the five were overjoyed, thanking an XN for her kindness. I Qingshan wanted to ask more about Guan's situation, but an XN shook her head, saying no more, and he could only let the matter rest. Senior, we wish to establish a sect nearby to aid mortals in their immortal cultivation. Will we be disturbing you? Qing Ming asked cautiously. An XN lifted her hand, pointing to the stream before them. As long as your sect does not cross the stream, you won't be causing a disturbance. Guan had informed her that I Qingshan was the reincarnation of Lu Jiujia, so she also anticipated what kind of sect I Qingshan would establish. Upon hearing Nzin's response, all five felt completely relieved. An XN turned and walked back the way she had come, leaving them with parting words. The great Tao is long, do not become blinded by hatred. Your own cultivation is what matters most. These words startled the five, and they remained shocked until an XN vanished from their sight. Only then did they come back to their senses. Gu Changxing asked carefully, did she overhear our conversation or did she divine it? It is said that a great power of the immortal Tao can look at a person and know their past and future. I Qingshan took a deep breath and said, she must have deduced it, perhaps our master came here originally in search of her. The other four also felt this made sense and held an XIN in even greater awe. They didn't linger any longer and turned to leave. Now that they were certain their master was still alive, they could begin their own plans. On the other side, an XN walked deeper into the woods, and when she saw Guan's figure, a smile appeared on her face. She quickened her pace, abandoning the demeanor of a celestial maiden and adopted the lively, joyful posture of a young girl. Master, how did I do? An XN asked proudly as she arrived in front of Guan. Guan stood in front of the bushes, a butterfly perching on his right hand. He stared at the butterfly and said softly, not bad, you have a third of my charm. An XN became even more proud and curiously asked, Master, aren't you afraid they might establish another supreme sect? Guan replied, as long as we remain in the celestial spirit great world and continue to interact with others, such things are inevitable. Let them be. At least for the sects they create, we have no responsibility to protect them. The prosperity they create can also serve as entertainment for you when you are bored, and experiencing fate and encounters among the mortal realm is also a form of cultivation. He lifted his right hand and the butterfly flew away. Then he and an XIN headed toward the Taoist field of the beginningless. That makes sense, being in seclusion for too long can indeed become dull. However, I've agreed to spar with Celestial Demon Child in 100 years. I certainly don't want to lose to her again, said an XN as she followed beside Guan. She got along very well with Celestial Demon Child. Their rivalry was healthy, spurring each other on. No matter who won or lost, neither would take it lightly. She told me the same thing, Guan said with a smile. There weren't many people in the Taoist field of the beginningless, but none of them were the quiet type. He thoroughly enjoyed the lifestyle there. When bored, he could visit Immortal Seeking Island or Human World Peak, or venture elsewhere. There was always a destination. Leaving the Supreme Sect didn't mean he was cut off from the world. The master and disciple chatted casually as they walked back to the dojo. On the other side, deep in the cosmos, a majestic world gate stood in the void, as if at the center of the universe, radiating an endless ancient aura. A fluctuation emerged from within the gate, and a figure stepped out. This was a man in black, enveloped in a crimson aura, his head adorned with a crown resembling a mystical beast, and a belt embedded with dragon scales. He radiated a powerful presence. After stepping through the world gate, his gaze fell upon a figure beside it. He turned and saluted, Senior, it has been many years. Are you well? The figure he addressed was none other than the Celestial Spirit God. The Celestial Spirit God shone with intense brightness, its shape visible but its visage unseen. It seems the battle court is determined to continue this conflict, the Celestial Spirit God said, its tone indifferent. The man in black cracked a smile and said, There's no choice. The karma between us and the Long clan is too deep, irreconcilable. The celestial spirit god did not respond, and silence fell over the void. After a moment's hesitation, the man in black asked, "Senior, if the celestial court were to reappear in the human world, would you consider returning?" As soon as he finished speaking, his expression changed drastically, and he trembled all over. The celestial spirit god did not stand, but a terrifying intent to kill locked onto the man in black, leaving him quaking with fear. Do not attempt to test the will of a god, or else even the battle court cannot keep you safe. The voice of the celestial spirit god rang out, and the man in black felt the world spin, his body as if plunging into an unfathomable abyss, his sight blurring and his divine soul overturning. After a while, the man in black opened his eyes to find himself upon a meteor. He stood up, peered into the distance and could not see the world gate. He was silently alarmed. Such a terrifying power of the heavenly Tao. Is this the force that suppresses a great thousand world? Chapter 505. Long Family Destiny Pattern. Celestial Tao merits Yi Qingshan and his 4 companions acted quickly. They first chose a mountain to construct buildings, and then began recruiting children with spirit roots. In just 1 year they had gathered over 300 young boys and girls, and then began to earnestly teach them cultivation. 100 years later, after the first batch of disciples had grown up, they officially started to establish their sect, named Chengkuan Sect. The Chengkuan Sect. There were many sects with this name in the world, but Yi Qingshan wanted there to be only one Chengkuan Sect. His ambitious declaration at the founding ceremony was overheard by Guan at the dojo. Guan just smiled lightly, not paying much attention. He didn't even bother to calculate the destiny of the Chengkuan Sect anymore, choosing to leave it as a mystery, as a bit of color in life. The seasonal patterns in the celestial spirit great world were broadly the same. At the start of autumn this year, Guan lay under a tree, hands pillowed behind his head, eyes closed. It seemed as though he was sleeping, but he was actually observing the Supreme Sect. After all, he had spent the earlier half of his life in the Supreme Sect, and even after 1,000 years, Guan still held some sentiment for it. He was currently paying attention to Longqing. Before leaving the Third Medicine Valley, Guan had begun to release the Guiyuan divine Tao within Longqing's body, allowing him to gradually regain his qi refinement talent. Longqing, born in the Nirvana realm, had completely recovered his true strength after 1,000 years of cultivation. Under his leadership, the Third Medicine Valley had become a very powerful force within the Supreme Sect. Everyone knew that he was raised by Guan. With him there, the bond between the Supreme Sect and the supporting Tao Sword Venerable would not break. Therefore, even those whose cultivation levels were several greater realms higher than his would still try to please him. Unlike Guan's style, Longqing turned the Third Medicine Valley into a power-chasing valley, losing the leisurely and peaceful atmosphere of the past. At this moment, someone was persuading Longqing. This person was a profound Yuan-free immortal who came from the World Gate. Guan initially thought he was here to cause trouble, especially since he carried the thick aura of the battle court. However, this person had lingered outside Celestial Spirit Great World for decades and then infiltrated the Supreme Sect, where he stayed for several decades before finally approaching Longqing. He was currently explaining to Longqing about the strength of the Long clan and their deep connections with the battle court. Previously, Yi Tianji had shown Longqing many images from past lives, but those were only fragments of memories. When Longqing truly understood his heritage, his feelings were incredibly complex. Inside Longqing's loft, he sat on a chair, silent for a long time. The profound Yuan-free immortal waited for him to accept his heritage. Longqing remained silent for half an hour, then he looked up at the man in black and asked, "You've told me so much, but who are you?" The man in black smiled and said, "My name is Candle Star, from the Battle Court, a disciple of the Lord of the War Court. I have lived far beyond your imagination, and much of the history I've told you, I witnessed personally." Hearing this, Longqing frowned. He was not frightened into standing up. Instead, he stared at Candle Star and asked, "If you come from the battle court, why awaken my hatred towards it?" Candle Star laughed and said, "The battle court has strayed, always trying to please the immortal gods. I'm not satisfied with that. I prefer the battle court under Emperor Longxin's rule. That was the true battle court worthy of battle's name." As he spoke, his eyes revealed longing and excitement. Longqing's frown deepened. He could not see through Candle Star's intentions, nor could he discern whether his words were true. Candle Star looked at Longqing, raised his hands and suddenly said excitedly, "Do you know why the battle court targets your Long clan? It's not because you are the legitimate one but because they fear your bloodline. No, they want to obtain it." Long Qing's expression changed, but before he could speak, Candlestar continued, "The real founder of the battle court was Emperor Longxin's father, Long Zhan, also known as Celestial Dragon Emperor. Without experiencing the era's tribulation of the Great Thousand World, he grew rapidly. In every battle, his strength surged substantially. It is said that once after slaughtering an entire great heaven and earth, he managed to cross the 9 heavens of the immortal path in a remarkably short time. Emperor Longxin's talent was also immense, but he turned against the Celestial Dragon Emperor and thereafter ceased creating slaughter." Candlestar grew more excited as he spoke, his eyes even gleaming. He could not only grow stronger through slaughter but also resist heavenly might. Even crossing the 9 heavens of the immortal path, he managed to successfully cross the tribulation within a day. Such talent, such destiny pattern, is enough to drive the 3,000 Great Thousand Worlds mad. Candlestar's intense gaze made Long Qing uncomfortable. Long Qing couldn't help but say, "Are you suggesting that the Long clan inherited such talent and destiny pattern?" "Exactly, the grandson of Emperor Longxin once inherited such talent, and that was also why the Long clan headed toward decline," Candlestar replied, his gaze sizing up Long Qing with greed filling his eyes. Long Qing snorted, "So you want to possess me?" Candlestar quickly shook his head, "No, no, no, the talent of the Long clan, and you who cannot be killed no matter what, obviously your clan hides a great cause and effect. The fools of the war court can't see this clearly. Of course, the most important thing is that I also believe in my own talent. I want you to retake control of the war court, and together we can establish everlasting great celestial Tao merits." Long Qing furrowed his brows again. He muttered, "With my current cultivation level, how many years would it take to overthrow the war court?" Candlestar answered, "If it's fast, several tens of millions of years. If slow, several hundreds of millions of years. Of course you have to survive and you cannot slack off." "Tens of millions of years?" Long Qing widened his eyes, unable to remain calm. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Are you joking with me? Even if it really took that many years, could you wait that long?" Candlestar huffed, "Why can't I wait? I also need time to cultivate. Don't feel that it's too long. To reach my current cultivation level, closing my eyes, 1,000,000 years pass in an instant, not to mention those who are in seclusion seeking enlightenment. For them, even 10 million years are not worth mentioning. The reason you haven't felt time passing so quickly is that this great thousand world is currently undergoing an era transition. The heavenly Tao promotes the movement of heaven and earth, and living beings are continually fighting. You've experienced too many changes." Long Qing fell into silence. Candlestar then looked around, examining the furnishings within the room. Long Qing took a deep breath and asked, "Since that's the case, how will you assist me?" Candlestar turned his head towards him, smiling, "You first become the sect leader of the Supreme Sect. By then let the Supreme Sect unify the world. After the era of tribulation ends, and the celestial merits fall onto the Supreme Sect as its sect leader, and me as the vice sect leader, we will receive vast celestial Tao merits, aiding us in our enlightenment. In the silent extinction domain, there is a world gate that will limit the war court, preventing them from invading in large numbers. Previously your master killed Yi Tianji, which has already placed the war court in a dilemma, causing internal divisions. Now is the best time for us to develop our sect." After hearing this, Long Qing's brows gradually smoothed. Elsewhere, far in the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan listened to their conversation, and he was not too surprised because he had previously guessed why the war court was hunting the Long clan. The silent destruction god emperor used a person from the Long clan to cultivate the celestial dragon reincarnation dharma aspect, which was the best proof. He was more interested in the celestial Tao merits mentioned by Candlestar. If Long Qing and Candlestar could indeed lead the Supreme Sect to become the ruler of the world, it would be a good thing, providing Guan with a sense of presence as well. Of course, if Long Qing were to go astray, Guan would not ignore it. He had protected Long Qing, so he had the responsibility to keep an eye on Long Qing, to prevent him from walking the path of slaughter followed by his previous life and ancestors. Guan stood up and headed towards the mountain forests. With the establishment of the Chengkuan sect, the sect had been aggressively recruiting disciples, and the number of disciples had quickly surpassed 10,000. With so many people, there were bound to be some who caused trouble. Indeed, someone was heading towards the forbidden area designated by the Chengkuan sect, approaching the Taoist field of the beginningless. Guan felt it necessary to arrange a guard, pretending to be a hermit in deep mountains. An Xian, who usually needed to focus on cultivation, didn't have the time to watch continuously. He had just entered the mountain forest when a streak of white light sped over and landed on his shoulder. It was the white spirit rat. "Master, where are you going?" the white spirit rat curiously asked. Guan laughed heartily. "You run around all day full of energy and you don't cultivate. How about becoming the demon king?" The white spirit rat's eyes lit up at hearing this. It asked, "Really? Come, I'll transform some demons and you can choose from them. From now on, you'll be in charge of guarding around the Taoist field, and you will not allow anyone to trespass without permission." "That's great, Master. I definitely won't let you be disappointed." The white spirit rat said excitedly. Even though it had shrunk its rat body, it still looked chubby, laughing like a trembling white fur ball. Guan began instructing the white spirit rat on what it could and couldn't do. This guy was too mischievous. Rules must be established to prevent it from becoming utterly lawless. He couldn't allow it to become like the Cyan Bull demon under Lord Lao Zi of the Great Monad. Chapter 506. The strongest sword. Time passed swiftly, and another 200 years went by. Guan enlightened 100 demons, taught personally by the white spirit rat. An Xian introduced them to I Ching Shan and others, enabling the white spirit rat to quickly establish a relationship with the Chengkuan sect. Under the guidance of I Ching Shan and his peers, the Chengkuan sect occasionally presented gifts to the white spirit rat and its subordinate demons, making the relationship between the two parties increasingly close. After 200 years, the Chengkuan sect had risen to power, becoming a first-class sect in the Nine-Spirit continent with aspirations of sweeping across the world. With 9 Mahayana practitioners, the Chengkuan sect was truly invincible in this land, and unifying the continent was only a matter of time as long as no forces from overseas intervened. Conflicts continued between heaven and earth, and the spiritual energy from nature surged towards the heart of the continent, prompting the strong practitioners to follow it. This weakened the immortal cultivation atmosphere in the peripheral regions. That was the case for the Nine-Spirit continent and neighboring continents. Almost no creatures from the immortal Tao realm visited this area, though many lower realm beings wanted to spend their remaining life here. On this day, inside the Taoist field of the beginningless by a lake in the mountains, Guan was fishing. Blood Prison Great Saint stood by, curiously watching the lake's surface and couldn't help but ask, "Master, are these fish of a special kind?" In his mind, the master was the strongest. In his view, the master wouldn't engage in meaningless activities. Even the leisurely ones would, upon reflection, hold significance, just like how the master enjoyed reading and writing, which Shenzhen emulated and then attained enlightenment. There were also the games of Go and chess created by the master, which could enhance one's comprehension of the Tao. Even gardening held many subtleties, allowing for deeper contemplation. Even serving as a bullock, 1,000 years of reflection had helped the Blood Prison Great Saint shed his impetuous and arrogant temperament. This lake was newly created by Guan yesterday. When he went to the Hidden Spirit Palace to gather medicinal herbs, he brought back several small fish, all of which were released into the lake. Guan replied, "Nothing special, they are just ordinary fish." "Ordinary fish?" The Blood Prison Great Saint was even more confused. He carefully observed the lake in front of him, convinced that it must hold some profound mystery, though he still couldn't see through it. Little did he know, Guan simply wanted to fish for the sake of fishing. His fishhook was formed from concentrated mana, and once it stuck to a fish's mouth, the fish couldn't escape but wouldn't be hurt either. He merely wanted to experience the process of fishing. After leaving the Supreme Sect, although he had a broader dojo, Guan still had idle moments. Although he didn't practice chi absorption, he still wouldn't do nothing when idle. He gained insights into the natural world through seemingly mundane activities. As long as he observed naturally occurring phenomena, he could sense the great Tao. Having reached the innate golden immortal realm, Guan didn't feel invincible and continued to pursue the great Tao. The evolution of his lifespan eliminated the need for chi absorption cultivation, making him treasure the time for attaining enlightenment even more. Guan was sitting on a stone with the Blood Prison Great Saint standing beside him, both quietly observing the lake. Sunlight fell on them and blended with the landscape, creating a peaceful and beautiful picture. After a long while, a figure descended from the sky and landed beside Guan. It was Qin Xuan. The 1,000-year-old Qin Xuan had also reached the Nirvana realm. From Nirvana to the loose immortal realm, the time required was incomparable to that of the mortal realm, so those at Nirvana realm around Guan still hadn't reached the loose immortal realm. Not everyone's talent compared to Hao's, and Hao's opportunities could even be said to be unique, unrivaled in the world. "Master, I sense a sword," Qin Xuan spoke, his eyes filled with excitement. Before Guan could respond, the Blood Prison Great Saint curiously asked, What sword? Since arriving at the Taoist field of the beginningless, the blood prison great saint hadn't sensed any dangerous aura. He hadn't felt the formidable sword, but he knew Qin Chuan's destiny pattern was extraordinary, so he was very curious. I can't explain clearly, but I feel a sword has descended upon this world, continuously emitting sword cries as if waiting for me to seek it, answered Qin Chuan, pondering and recalling his previous sensations as he spoke. His words made the blood prison great saint even more curious. When Guan moved from the supreme sect to this place, he didn't bring Long Qin or other close disciples but brought Qin Chuan. The blood prison great saint always felt that Qin Chuan's talent might match that of An Hao or Yang Jian. In fact, Qin Chuan had indeed shown dazzling comprehension in the sword Dao, although the blood prison great saint felt it still wasn't enough. There is indeed such a sword coming from outer heaven. It is the strongest sword in the world. Possessing it qualifies one to contend for the world. Not just you but anyone who diligently practices the sword Dao will sense it, Guan responded, his gaze fixed on the lake surface, never wavering. Hearing this, Qin Chuan frowned. Blood prison great saint widened his eyes and asked, "This is clearly a conspiracy. Is another power from outer heaven about to attack?" Throughout the previous cataclysms of heaven and earth, it was always the forces from outer heaven that initiated them. The conflicts between the immortal dynasty and the holy court were never a threat to all living beings. "It's the work of the great Hong Sword Heaven behind Zhu Luo Sword Monarch," Guan answered. Hearing about Zhu Luo Sword Monarch, both blood prison great saint and Qin Chuan exchanged glances. Tiske, could it be that guy lost to Yang Immortal Emperor and couldn't accept it? Blood prison great saint guessed with schadenfreude. He disliked the way Zhu Luo Sword Monarch carried himself, a demeanor that screamed invincibility, which he found repulsive. Qin Chuan, on the other hand, remained silent as he began to feel the sword again. For some reason he always felt that the sword was of special significance to him, but his master's words left him confused. If others felt the same way he did, then indeed they shouldn't go. But was it really the same? Guan's fishing rod began to move. He waited a few moments before suddenly yanking it, pulling a large yellow fish into his hands. He unhooked the fish and released it back into the lake. This action made Qin Chuan pause. He took a deep breath, then walked to a patch of grass and sat down. He took out his own sword, placed it on his lap, and quietly contemplated. Blood prison great saint looked at him with a curious expression. Guan remained silent, just the corners of his mouth lifted. In his eyes, that #1 divine sword was nothing exceptional. Qin Chuan didn't need to compete. By cultivating by his side, he would eventually surpass that sword. However, "Senior brother Li, you're not going to ask me to take action, are you?" Guan looked up towards the horizon with a teasing gaze. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, above an endless ocean dressed in black, Leah stood on a black eagle, soaring across the sea of clouds, with divine exotic immortal spirit perched on his shoulder, gripping his hair, shivering. "Do we really have to steal it? The aura of this sword is very powerful. It will definitely attract terrifyingly strong individuals. Don't forget, my master has already left the celestial spirit great world." Divine exotic immortal spirit couldn't help but ask. It had deliberately conveyed the news of Guan's departure to Liya, hoping that Liya would be less reckless in the future. Its method indeed worked. Liya had been peaceful for 1,000 years, but today he was embarking on an adventure again. Liya's eyes were cold as he said, "How can I become stronger without striving for it? By meditating in seclusion? Don't worry, if it really comes to dying, I'll let you go. I won't drag you down." His heart, though, was aflame. Because he felt that the sword was calling to him. He was the true master recognized by the sword. Divine exotic immortal spirit couldn't help but say, "Do you really think I could escape if it comes to that?" Leah glanced at it and said, "Then why don't you leave now? I must go regardless. Perhaps this is my only chance to catch up to An Hao." Divine exotic immortal spirit rolled its eyes, retorted irritably, "You're always talking about An Hao. It's been years without any news of him. He might already be dead. Don't always fantasize about how strong your opponents are and then force yourself. That's impossible. He can't be dead. His cultivation level must be outrageous. With my current abilities, I doubt I could withstand even one of his moves." Leah shook his head. No matter how far the places he had visited or how strong the people he had met, he always believed that An Hao was the foremost talent in heaven and earth. He felt that fate had made him encounter An Hao, and that was a blessing to him. With An Hao there, he would never be complacent about his achievements. He would always feel not strong enough and thus continue to strive. Divine exotic immortal spirit scratched its head, feeling that Liya was delusional and beyond persuasion, but it was not panicking. After all these years, it suddenly wanted to see its master, and Liya should be able to help it. Chapter 507, Heaven and Earth Tao Fruit. Celestial beings. Guan could hear the divine exotic immortal spirit's heart voice. Although he could maintain spiritual communication with it, he rarely paid attention to it. The main reason was that the divine exotic immortal spirit was too annoying. Guan had responded before, and as a result, it chattered constantly, bothering him without end. Guan was neither worried about Liya going to seize the sword, nor was he afraid that Liya would cause any trouble for him. He would only save Liya's life, but wouldn't help him seize the sword. Saving a life was not difficult for Guan, as simple as blowing out a breath. Guan continued fishing until, after an hour, he finally stood up and left. The blood prison great saint hurriedly followed his pace, while Chen Chuan continued to stay by the lake, his eyes tightly closed, comprehending his own sword intent. He wanted to resist the attraction of that sword, feeling that if he could withstand it, his sword Dao would ascend a level. Tens of miles away, and Xingtian was practicing qi absorption on a cliff, the breeze blowing through his hair. Another 10 miles ahead, his master Jiang Shi was sowing seeds. Jiang Shi didn't use spells but planted them by hand, treating it as a form of cultivation. Looking to the east, the celestial demon child was discussing the Tao with the ghost mother of ephemera, exchanging cultivation insights. Others were in seclusion within their respective cave mansions, all steadfastly advancing on their own paths of cultivation. The winds rolling through the Taoist field of the beginningless swept toward the celestial vault, carrying away the seasons. By the next late summer, the battle over the divine sword inevitably erupted. The sword drew sword cultivators from all over, and Liya, at the Nirvana realm, couldn't even get involved. Let alone having Guan save him, he didn't even have the qualification to see the divine sword. The battle between two divine immortals of wondrous dharma prevented him and the divine exotic immortal spirit from moving forward, forcing them to wait in the distance. Sadly, as time passed, Liya not only couldn't advance but was also pushed back because higher-level sword cultivators joined the fray. The setting sun cast a pall over an opulent city where Zhu Shi, dressed in yellow robes, strolled along the street. She looked just as young as ever, like a girl of 16 or 17, her eyes shining as she looked around with interest. No one could have imagined that this seemingly innocent girl was the Xingtian of the Holy Court, once the strongest being of heaven and earth. Just as Zhu Shi became engrossed with the sights on either side of the street, a figure approached her. "Young friend, please halt." A laugh came from ahead, and Zhu Shi fixed her gaze before stopping in her tracks. She saw a young monk draped in a kasaya blocking her path. This person was none other than the immortal seeker who had taught the Taoist expansion skill. It was because the Taoist expansion skill had advanced to the innate reincarnation skill that Guan was able to help the people he cared about extend their ultimate lifespan. Zhu Zai's smile vanished and she calmly looked at the immortal seeker. The immortal seeker chuckled. "The humble monk observes that you possess extraordinary destiny. Would you like to ascend to immortality? The humble monk can assist you." Zhu Shi focused on him, saying, "You, a monk, refer to yourself as humble monk? Do you think you're credible?" Of course the humble monk is credible. His Majesty Saint Heaven is nurtured by the celestial spirit and destiny. Even as a reincarnated being, a pair of eyes can see through everything, can't they? The immortal seeker said with a chuckle, causing Zhu Shi to furrow her brow. When he mentioned Saint Heaven, a passing cultivator threw a suspicious glance at him, but quickly disappeared with the flow of the crowd. Zhu Shi and the immortal seeker faced each other amidst the throng. They were out of place in this world and indifferent to the gazes of the people. Zhu Zai's eyes gradually became piercing, as if she had transformed into someone else. She exuded the aura of someone who reigned supreme, looking down at the immortal seeker, asking, "A person from heaven?" The immortal seeker laughed, "Your Majesty is indeed formidable." Zhu Shi lifted her right foot and took a step forward. As her toes touched the ground, the world suddenly changed. The streets and the people coming and going all vanished, and they found themselves in a dim, desolate mountain wilderness, with dense clouds in the sky and faint thunder rumbling. Immortal Seeker did not panic and continued to smile at Zhu Shi. "Are you sure you have what I'm looking for?" Zhu Shi asked, and as she lifted her right hand, the earth around them split open, and roots emerged from all directions, swiftly intertwining in the sky to form a huge sword that pointed straight at Immortal Seeker. This wooden sword was more colossal than the mountains between heaven and earth. It seemed to occupy half of the sky upon its appearance. "You're looking for the heaven and earth Tao fruit. What you want isn't just to unify the current celestial spirit great world, is it?" What you desire is the entire celestial spirit great world, right? Immortal Seeker answered. Zhu Shi narrowed her eyes but did not respond. Immortal Seeker continued, the heaven and earth Tao fruit is bound to appear sooner or later, but now there's already a presence stronger than even the free immortal. Your Majesty, how will you snatch it then? Zhu Shi huffed. So you're saying, you can't give me anything and you've merely come to remind me? Not at all, Immortal Seeker said leisurely. I have come to save your life. The celestial Tao golden core is bait left by the person from the world gate, and the heaven and earth Tao fruit is even more taboo. If one's realm is insufficient, merely touching the heaven and earth Tao fruit will lead to being devoured. It contains even more horrifying cause and effect, causes even the person from the world gate does not know of. Zhu Shi squinted and asked, then tell me how high must one's realm be to touch it? To reach the pinnacle of what the free immortal can achieve. Immortal Seeker's smile turned mischievous. Zhu Shi frowned and asked, above the ninth heaven of the immortal path, there's still the level of free immortal? That's right. There are 3 free immortal levels above it, and none of those strongest beings who appeared in the last few thousand years have reached that realm, not even the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. Hearing Immortal Seeker mention the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, Zhu Zai's face became grim. Even though she had fully recovered the memories of her previous life, she still kept the gratitude of this live's mentor-disciple relationship in her heart and respected Guan from her core. In her view, Guan was an old predecessor from beyond the skies, with a cultivation level far surpassing hers, coupled with the fact that he had taught her, she naturally held respect for him. Even the supporting Tao Sword Venerable was not qualified to touch the heaven and earth Tao fruit? Zhu Shi fell into silence. Immortal Seeker quietly watched her. After a long while he finally said, I have a method that can help you avoid being devoured. Zhu Shi looked up at him with a skeptical face. Immortal Seeker continued, what you need to do is surpass the 9 heavens of the immortal path, possess the competence to traverse the world freely. Can you achieve that? Zhu Shi replied coldly, I have long been able to do so, but I've deliberately suppressed my realm. I can sense an almighty existence outside this world watching me. If I break through, I will encounter unexpected disasters. Some free immortals need thousands, tens of thousands of cycles of reincarnation tribulations, but I only need 1 life. Immortal Seeker was taken aback, clearly shocked by her words. He took a deep breath and said in admiration, worthy of being the child of heaven and earth chosen by the destiny of celestial spirit. In that case I will pass on a cultivation technique to you. Practice it first, then break through. Zhu Zai's right hand dropped, and the huge wooden sword suspended in the dim celestial vault dissipated like smoke and clouds. Who exactly are you and why do you want to help me? Zhu Shi stared intently at Immortal Seeker, hoping to get an answer. Immortal Seeker turned, looking towards the horizon and said, I indeed come from above, but I do not affiliate myself with those self-important folks. The reason I assist you is merely to fulfill a wish. My disciple died in this great thousand world. Zhu Shi asked in surprise, the death of your disciple requires all this scheming? Do you need my help for revenge? Immortal Seeker glanced at her and said, merging with the heaven and earth Tao fruit will be enough to fill the regret in my heart. Zhu Zai's brows were tightly locked, still somewhat unclear. But Immortal Seeker no longer elaborated. Suddenly, Zhu Shi seemed to realize something. Her expression changed drastically as she looked incredulously at Immortal Seeker. Chapter 508. 9 Extreme Sacred Heart Sword, The Legend of Yangxian Human World Peak, Heaven-Defining Peak Above. Heaven and Earth Tao Fruit. Celestials. Within the courtyard at the mountain's summit, Guan sat in a rocking chair with his eyes closed, musing to himself. Meng Lang's conversation with the Immortal Seeker had reached his ears. With his current cultivation level of innate golden immortal realm, no movement within the celestial spirit great world could escape his notice, especially concerning Zhu Shi, whom he had always been keeping an eye on. Guan had always had an impression of the Immortal Seeker but had not expected him to have such a background. What exactly was the world above like? The self-assured individuals mentioned by the Immortal Seeker, could they be the immortal gods pursuing him to the extreme? Celestial Tao Golden Core Heaven and Earth Tao Fruit. Interesting, could it be that the previous celestial spirit great world was transformed by some great power, and after the demise of that being, the world shattered, creating today's vast universe? If that was the case, what level of cultivation did that being have? Upon reaching the innate golden immortal realm, Guan's Tao fruit could also create a world, confirming that the existence was at least of the innate golden immortal realm. However, just how high his power was difficult to gauge. Perhaps the growth of a world required time, but Guan wanted to estimate as high as possible because he would regard any powerful existence as a hypothetical enemy. He would not hold enmity towards those with whom he had no grievances, but he needed the confidence to respond. The celestial spirit god was scheming with the celestial Tao golden core, but what was being calculated by the heaven and earth Tao fruit that could devour all living beings? Suddenly, Guan felt that the celestial spirit great world, so clear and transparent in his eyes, became interesting and full of suspense. He was curious to see what storms the celestial Tao golden core and the heaven and earth Tao fruit would stir up in the years to come. Since he had decided to watch over the world's changes from within the dojo, he would not make a move lightly. Guan opened his eyes, raised his hand, and a book from inside the house flew into his hand. He had left many books in his various residences, occasionally revisiting them for new insights. He gently rocked in the rocking chair, undisturbed by anyone. A figure appeared out of nowhere in the courtyard, none other than Zhu Xinglan, the leading disciple of heaven-defining peak. With his cultivation of the 9th floor of the wandering immortal realm, he saw his master's chair swaying and took another look, then began to tend to the courtyard. He did not realize that his master was sitting in the chair. Guan did not leave either, he was simply concealed by the huge gap in their realms, allowing him to remain completely invisible to Zhu Xinglan and undetected in any way. To those of Human World Peak, they did not know Guan by name, only Meng Lang. As a great cultivator, being away for thousands or even tens of thousands of years was nothing out of the ordinary, so no one wondered about Guan's disappearance. After spending half a day on Human World Peak, Guan stepped back into the Taoist field of the beginningless Tai Tsang continent upon a barren plain. Long Qing was meditating in the air, surrounded by black qi which violently tugged at his robes. Candle Star stood on the ground, staring at him and nodding slightly, his eyes full of admiration. At that moment, Long Qing opened his eyes, looking into the distance and furrowing his brow as he asked, "What sword is this exactly?" "It's quite formidable." Candle Star turned to follow his gaze, looking toward the horizon, and said, "The 9 Extremes Sacred Heart Sword from Great Hong Sword Heaven, the first demonic sword of their sect, formed from the entire cultivation of a certain sword venerable. His soul was forged into a sword soul, which was then placed within the sacred heart sword Tao in the river of sword Tao, nurtured for countless years to take today's form. To possess this sword is to gain the power to roam the worlds unopposed." Hearing this, Long Qing in surprise asked, "A demonic sword?" "Correct. To tame this sword, one must gain the recognition of its sword soul, but the sword soul is violent and often devours the souls of its masters, so naturally, it is considered a demonic sword," Candle Star said, a hint of playfulness on his face. Narrowing his eyes, Long Qing asked, "Could it be that Great Hong Sword Heaven wants to treat the living beings of the celestial spirit great world as nourishment to feed this demonic sword?" "That's not it," Guan guessed. "It might be related to the founding ancestor of Great Hong Sword Heaven, the Sword God." Sword God. Along with the roar, Candle Star recounted the feats of Sword God Yang Pingan, and also mentioned Sword Tao Saint Ancestor Yang Xian. Long Qing listened with rapt attention, never having imagined that such formidable figures existed in other great heaven and earths. After a brief pause, Candle Star said, "The transcender who guards this great thousand world once declared that Sword Tao Saint Ancestor possessed the highest level of comprehension in this great thousand world and could even be considered an anomaly." Long Qing asked with curiosity, "Where is that Sword Tao Saint Ancestor now?" "I don't know," Candle Star admitted. "Some say he has perished, while others believe he is hidden deep within the river of Sword Tao. Because the Sacred Heart Sword Tao has merged with the river of Sword Tao, other sword cultivators from the Great Thousand Worlds can also comprehend the Sacred Heart Sword Tao. Countless sword cultivators and Sword Tao sects now look up to the Sword Tao Saint Ancestor. I too have sensed the Sacred Heart Sword Tao, and truly, it's boundlessly vast." Candle Star shook his head as he spoke, his tone filled with longing for the Sword Tao Saint Ancestor. Long Qing too began to fantasize about the Sacred Heart Sword Tao. Candle Star suddenly exclaimed with suspicion, interrupting Long Qing's thoughts. Long Qing couldn't help but turn to him and asked, "What's wrong?" Candle Star narrowed his eyes and said, "The 9 Extremes Sacred Heart Sword is about to have a master. I never expected him to come. What exactly are these old creatures seeking after reincarnating?" Long Qing was even more confused, but no matter how he inquired afterward, Candle Star refused to reveal more, merely saying that he would know in time. Although he didn't get an answer, Long Qing felt fired up. From what he'd heard from Candle Star, he learned about a vaster heaven and earth and became aware of more awe-inspiring legends and great powers. He too wanted to become an existence like them. He suddenly thought of his master. What exactly was his master's name? Supporting Tao Sword Venerable was just a title given by the Supreme Sect. His master surely had his own Tao name. Mountains stretched endlessly, and within the forests on the ridges, Leah followed an elder. The divine exotic immortal spirit on his shoulder intently watched the elder, as though fearing that the elder would stop. The elder wore white clothes under a black robe, a bright red belt wrapped around his clothing. His white hair was tied under a jade crown, and even with an aged face, he still had a noble aura. On the elder's back was a sword case with a piece of talisman paper attached, its blood-red characters faintly glowing with a cold light. The elder suddenly stopped walking, startling Leah into halting as well. "You wouldn't think of snatching the sword from me with your Nirvana realm cultivation level, would you?" The elder asked Leah without turning around. Leah took a deep breath and said, "Of course not, but having witnessed your power, I wish to take you as my master to cultivate the most powerful sword Tao." His eyes burned with fervor. The astonishing great battle he had witnessed still echoed in his mind. The image of the elder suppressing the crowd with a single sword strike made a profound impression on him. He had heard from a senior observer that among the great cultivators vying for the divine sword was a powerful being who stood at the ninth heaven of the immortal path. But when he learned such a formidable figure had taken action, he completely abandoned the thought of seizing the sword, adopting more of a spectator's mentality instead. However, the great power of the ninth heaven that he intended to observe ended up defeated, and the defeat was an utter disaster. After the elder left with the divine sword, Leah could still feel the divine sword's guidance, and so he followed. How could the elder not notice his pursuit? When Leah actually managed to keep up, he started to feel hopeful, thinking that perhaps the other party wanted to give him a chance. The elder turned to face Leah and said, "To take me as your master is not impossible. The karma on you is complex, as if someone has altered your fate. Precisely because of that, you should have better comprehension towards the Tao of karma and destiny. I might even pass on this 9 extreme sacred heart sword to you." "But," Leah immediately asked, "but what?" Hearing that he could possess the sword, his breathing quickened. Chapter 509, Sword Annihilation Ancestor, Imperial Authority Mythology. "However, to inherit my Taoist lineage and bear my karma means you will obtain unparalleled power, but you will have difficulty finding peace for the rest of your life." The old man stared at Leah, speaking slowly and deliberately, his gaze icy cold. Leah was frightened by his eyes. He didn't answer right away but instead carefully reflected on his life. Although he had faced hardships, he always felt that his current status was entirely due to the aid of others. In the first half of his life, his imperial father had shielded and protected him. Later, Guan, under another identity, had protected him and taught him swordsmanship. When would he be able to repay these people? Leah found himself caught in a difficult decision. He feared that he would mess things up and that, in the end, Guan would have to rescue him. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at the divine exotic immortal spirit resting on his shoulder. This time, the divine exotic immortal spirit remained silent, merely looking at him steadily as if to say, "This time it's up to you to decide." Leah believed that the old man had no intention of deceiving him, for there was no need. The gulf between their cultivation levels was vast, and if the old man truly wished to force him to do something, he would have no power to resist. As Leah hesitated, the old man turned and walked away. Leah fell to his knees and kowtowed in the direction of the old man's retreating figure, shouting loudly, "Master above, please accept your disciple's bow." The old man stopped in his tracks and then slowly turned around. He looked at Leah with an expressionless face and said, "Remember, my Taoist name is Sword Annihilation. Many refer to me as the Sword Annihilation Ancestor." Having said this, the Sword Annihilation Ancestor continued to walk away, and Leah quickly got up and followed his pace. Excitement was unmistakable on Leah's face. He stared at the back of the Sword Annihilation Ancestor, with many questions he wanted to ask, but he restrained himself. There is plenty of time ahead. Having seen the Sword Annihilation Ancestor's actions, he felt that the Sword Annihilation Ancestor was a rare existence that could match up to Guan. Of course, it was only his feeling because he thought the Sword Annihilation Ancestor didn't use his full strength when he claimed the 9 extremes sacred heart sword with such an ease and calmness. Such demeanor reminded him of Guan when he transformed into the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. Little did he know, Guan was listening in on his thoughts secretly. Comparing me to the Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal? Guan, who was picking medicinal herbs in the Taoist field of the beginningless, laughed, but this Sword Annihilation Ancestor had quite a reputation. He must have an even stronger true form. Guan had encountered his true form before, back when he had broken through to become the profound Yuan Free Immortal. At that time, the skull that devoured the Free Immortal had made a lasting impression on Guan. The aura of that skull was identical to that of the Sword Annihilation ancestor, and from the perspective of karma, they originated from the same source. The mere fact that a clone possessed the cultivation level of a Taoist Zhang Zizai immortal made him wonder just how powerful the Sword Annihilation ancestor's true form was. Ever since Guan defeated the battle court, the celestial spirit great world seemed to be distancing itself from the catastrophe of outer heaven. In reality, more beings of the Tao fruit realm had infiltrated the celestial spirit great world, behaving more covertly, probably out of fear of Guan. Every choice has its pros and cons. His own lifespan reincarnation had left behind unfavorable karma, but within the life he could control, he had always done good deeds. He was satisfied with that and never tired of it. Guan's mood became increasingly cheerful, and he began to give pointers to the ghost mother of ephemera following him. Although the ghost mother of ephemera had lost her freedom, she did not slack off because she saw greater hope. She even felt that her current life was better and more meaningful than before. Pursuing longevity, that was far more meaningful than being a vice-sect hierarch. The ghost mother of ephemera made note of every word Guan said and pondered them deeply. Guan knew what she was thinking, but he never spelled it out. He let her muse wildly, thinking maybe she might stumble upon something significant. An hour later, Guan finished picking herbs, and then he had the ghost mother of ephemera sow the seeds while he walked to his own loft, ready to take a nap. Even innate golden immortals can sleep, and Guan occasionally enjoyed dreaming, finding enlightenment in his dreams a particularly interesting experience. The white clouds above drifted slowly, yet in the blink of an eye, one might feel they moved quickly. The passage of time in the human world is the same. 1,000 years, like those clouds, is both fast and slow. It seems quick to cultivators but slow to mortals. On an early summer day at high noon. In the Tai Tsang dynasty within the Tsangzhou imperial city. In the imperial study, Li Xiandao held a petition, his face expressionless. He had been the emperor for over 4,000 years. His long-standing and domineering rule had become mythologized in the hearts of the people. The commoners were unfamiliar with the name supporting Tao Sword Venerable, unaware of the great cultivators of the immortal cultivation realm. In their eyes he was a living immortal. At this moment, two people were kneeling in the room, their heads bowed and bodies tense, one of them sweating profusely on the forehead. After a while, Li Xiandao looked up. He glanced at the two kneeling before him and asked, "What is the crown prince's opinion on the Yang family's actions?" One of the elderly ministers raised his head to look at Li Xiandao, hesitated for a moment and said, "His Highness did not respond to us, but one of my spies told me that the crown prince once said he found the position of crown prince rather dull, and he did not know." He did not know what? He did not know what it tastes like to sit on the imperial throne. After speaking, the old minister quickly bowed his head, pressing his forehead against the ground. Li Xuando's eyes flashed with a chill upon hearing this. He closed the petition he was holding and set it down gently. "Leave," Li Xiandao said with closed eyes. The two ministers immediately stood up, performed a salutary bow and left quickly. Once they had left the imperial garden and the palace grounds, and only when they had passed through the gates of the imperial city, did they finally breathe a sigh of relief. The other middle-aged minister turned to the old one and asked in a low voice, "Does His Highness truly intend to?" He looked around and withheld the word rebel. There have been signs for hundreds of years. It is said that ever since the crown prince returned from the Holy Land, his temperament has changed. He has already stepped into the immortal realm. I fear the imperial dynasty is about to face unprecedented turmoil. The Yang family has courted no small number of factions. The old minister sighed. His ancestors had served Li Xiandao for 10 generations and he himself had been an academically honored champion designated by Li Xiandao. In his heart, Li Xiandao was the heavens. But faced with a crown prince who possessed the cultivation level of the immortal Tao and had a formidable family background, how could he not think that the throne was on the cusp of changing hands? The middle-aged minister fell silent after hearing this, and they both hastened down the same street. Meanwhile, back in the imperial study, Li Xiandao slowly opened his eyes, gazing straight ahead and suddenly said, "Guan, supporting Tao Sword Venerable, you should be able to hear my words, right?" After his words, silence filled the room. No response came from outside. He took a deep breath, stood up, walked around the desk and then, lifting the hem of his robe, knelt on the ground. "Guan, if there is still any affection between us, please help me," Li Xiandao said with a resolute expression. He then began to kowtow. However, just as his forehead was about to touch the ground, a hand caught his forehead, preventing it from touching the floor. Lizuando's pupils contracted and his body trembled slightly. With great caution, he slowly lifted his head to see the person in front of him. It was indeed Guan. Chapter 510. The number 1 genius. Guan looked at Li Xiandao, who knelt before him, and felt quite moved. At the beginning of his cultivation, Li Xiandao had given him a lot of support. Although at that time, Guan had already been able to fend for himself, Li Xiandao treated him as a junior without knowing his true cultivation level. Throughout their interactions, Li Xiandao had never bullied him and was always so kind to him. The end of the world valley provided by Li Xiandao was also an important part of Guan's income in the first half of his life. The valley had been planted with high-tier cultivation herbs from the start, which were extremely significant for Guan before he reached 100 years old. Additionally, Li Xiandao had treated Yi Yan, Yang Jian and Wuxing quite well, so Guan had always had a good impression of Li Xiandao. He felt that there was a bond of sentiment between him and Li Xiandao. Their conversations were always delightful. It's just that Li Xiandao, as the emperor, was too busy and they seldom met. The last time they had met was more than 2,000 years ago. Li Xiandao had already achieved nirvana, but he displayed a cultivation level of integration realm. He had his own network of connections, but compared to the Yang family behind Li Lingtian and his mother, the forces he had gathered were not as strong. "Rise," Guan said softly, looking at the stunned Li Xiandao, and then he lifted him up. After Li Xiandao stood up, he took a deep breath and said, "You really didn't leave." Guan smiled and responded, "It seems we truly are people of the same path. You know what I'm thinking." Hearing this, Li Xiandao knew that Guan had seen through his hidden cultivation. He wasn't too surprised, considering how high Guan's cultivation level was. "Let's sit down and talk." Guan gestured with his hand and Li Xiandao nodded, then turned and walked to the table. Once they were both seated, Li Xiandao looked across at Guan, who seemed like an immortal monarch in the flesh, and felt somewhat dazzled. A mix of emotions flooded him. He was surprised, relieved, and felt undeservingly favored. He hadn't expected that he could actually summon Guan. Guan had abandoned the supreme sect but not him. How could he not be moved? "Tell me, how can I help you?" Guan asked. Even though he could guess the answer, he wanted to hear it from Li Xiandao himself. This process would also help Li Xiandao ease his emotions. Li Xiandao took a deep breath and began to recount his predicament. As Li Lingtian grew older, he became restless with his position as crown prince, and the Yang family behind the empress became increasingly impatient, constantly inciting conflict. A talent had emerged from the Yang family and had been taken into the holy court at the human world peak, a place far more formidable than all sects within the Broken Sea domain. Li Zuando's hidden cultivation level was nothing compared to the human world peak. It wasn't Li Lingtian that Li Xiandao feared but the human world peak. Guan listened patiently. After Li Xiandao finished speaking, he remarked, "That kid Li Lingtian has never been a quiet one since he was young, but that's normal. Being born into the imperial dynasty, how could he not aspire for imperial power?" Li Zuando's face turned slightly awkward as he admitted, "Indeed, I can't blame him. But the struggle for imperial power relies on one's own means. At least under my rule, the Taizong dynasty has always been developing well." That was indeed true. The Taizong dynasty had enjoyed thousands of years of peace, and while a prosperous age could harbor many internal conflicts, Li Xiandao always managed to resolve them well. Guan didn't feel that Li Xiandao should give up his throne. As long as the people of the Taizong dynasty were doing well and Li Zuando's lifespan was long, he indeed could keep sitting on his throne. Li Xiandao looked at Guan, his heart uneasy. In his eyes, the human world peak posed no threat to Guan, yet there really was no need for Guan to help him against the human world peak. Even if Li Xiandao offered everything he had, it probably wouldn't catch Guan's interest. Guan then spoke, "How about this? I'll have Yang Jian come and help you and from now on serve you. How does that sound?" He arranged this because Yang Jian recently wanted to leave the holy court and, conveniently, Yang Jian was the first person to defeat Li Lingtian, so their fated rivalry could be prolonged. Even to this day, Li Lingtian was still using Yang Jian as a benchmark. Upon hearing this, Li Zuando's eyes brightened and he asked, "Really? Can it be done?" He was very fond of Yang Jian. From the first sight of him, he wanted to win him over. That's why he had previously gathered the imperial dynasty's resources to forge an appropriate divine weapon for Yang Jian. "Of course, he'll arrive in a few days," Guan said with a smile. He believed Li Xiandao could go even further. No matter how the future evolved, for all beings, a situation with many strong contenders was better. If the whole world were to be ruled by a single power, it would be prone to troubles. Just like before when the Holy Court ruled the world, demon cultivators could slaughter the people of an entire region, and the truth could be easily suppressed by the Saint King. Therefore, with such thoughts in mind, Guan also hoped that the Taizong dynasty could endure and prosper further. Of course, he would only facilitate and mediate, never intervene directly. In fact, Yang Jin had a good impression of Li Xiandao, and it could be beneficial for both if they teamed up. Li Xiandao, after hearing Guan's promise, felt extremely cheerful, as if all the frustrations in his heart had been swept away. He already knew that Yang Jin had regained his Saint King status, and the current Yang Jin could help him counter the Human World Peak, or at least Human World Peak would give face to Yang Jin. How have these years been for you? Guan continued, beginning to make small talk with Li Xiandao. Li Xiandao did not hide anything, sincerely sharing his experiences, and the two seemed to return to the times of 4,000 years ago in the end of the World Valley, chatting with great joy. A full hour had passed before Guan finally took his leave. Watching Guan come and go like the wind, leaving not the slightest trace of his presence, Li Xiandao sincerely sighed. He is a true immortal. No sooner had his words fallen than Guan had already arrived at Human World Peak. Guan summoned Zhu Xinglan, instructing him to settle the matter, forbidding anyone from intervening in the internal strife of the Taizong dynasty. Zhu Xinglan immediately set out to handle the task. Without needing to use his status as the supporting Dao Sword Venerable, Guan could still easily have the matter resolved. The Yang family was considered powerful in the Broken Sea domain, but within Human World Peak they couldn't reach the top echelon. Having given his instructions, Guan then rested in the courtyard. After a while, Zhu Xinglan came back, delighted to see his master had returned. Guan was very satisfied with his dedication over the years and imparted divine skills to him, making Zhu Xinglan even more overjoyed. In the Taizong dynasty within a mansion, Li Lingtian sat at the head of the room, his face full of impatience. There were over a dozen people standing in the hall, discussing how to instigate a coup, even arguing over it. Li Lingtian was truly fed up and couldn't help but say, "Enough, no matter what, he is still my father, the emperor. At most, he'll seize power, but it's impossible to harm him." As soon as these words came out, everyone fell silent and then looked towards him. Li Lingtian was incredibly talented and presently had the cultivation level of the immortal Dao realm. His presence was strong enough to command attention. "Do you not realize what imperial power means to your father, the emperor? A struggle for the throne cannot be without casualties." An imposing voice came from outside the hall as a man in white walked in with the sunlight behind him. People turned their heads to look, all showing expressions of joyful surprise. An elder, thrilled, said, "Yang'an, you've finally returned. Yang'an, the top talent of the Yang family and a disciple of Human World Peak." He was handsome and elegant, with an extraordinary demeanor. His mere entrance was enough to dissipate Li Lingtian's aura. Li Lingtian frowned slightly as he looked at Yang'an. He resented and was wary of Yang'an. Everyone made way as Yang'an approached Li Lingtian, slightly raising his chin, looking down upon him and said, "The Yang family wants to make you emperor, this is your honor. You shouldn't be indecisive." Li Xiandao, when he took the throne, had stained his hands with the blood of many of his brothers and sisters. Chapter 5:11 You are not worthy of the name, and Yang An's words won the approval of the other people in the hall. They spoke in turn, continuing to persuade Li Lingtian, hoping he could let go of a woman's kindness. He must be ruthless in his actions, or else it would be easy to run into trouble. The more they agreed, the more irked Li Lingtian became. A bunch of Yang surname people forcing him, of the Li surname, to kill someone with the same surname? He wanted to curse loudly, but he was no longer the impulsive youth he once was. He had to maintain his relationship with the Yang family. The Yang family had provided him with too many cultivation resources, too many for him to cut ties with. The reason he wanted to become emperor was precisely because he could not gather the force of the Taizong dynasty for his own gains. No matter how high his talent might be, he still needed heavenly materials and earthly treasures and opportunities to push his cultivation faster. There were as many geniuses in this world as there were innumerable stars. He was not the brightest among them. Li Lingtian's complexion grew increasingly unsightly, and Yang'an did not stop the others from admonishing him. Instead, he watched Li Lingtian with great interest. His reason for coming was not merely to support Li Lingtian. In the eyes of the Yang family, their seizing the throne was already a done deal. What they needed to do was suppress Li Lingtian and make the imperial authority a plaything in the hands of the Yang family. When did the Yang family become the masters of the Taizong dynasty? How is it that I, who am also surnamed Yang, do not know this? A resounding voice echoed through heaven and earth. reaching the ears of everyone in the hall. Before they could react, a figure, glittering with silver light, appeared out of nowhere beside Yang and glanced over and his pupils suddenly dilated. The blade's edge was at his throat, making his body feel like it was in a cold cellar, chilled to the bone. Standing beside Yang was a man clad in silver armor, his left hand gripping a three-pointed double-bladed saber, its blade horizontal in front of him, pressed against Yang throat. His posture was so casual that it brought an indescribable shock to everyone present. Li Lingtian stared at Yang Jian, his eyes widening and his mouth opening involuntarily. "It's you?" Li Lingtian could never forget Yang Jian. The two had spent many years together and he had often sparred with Yang Jian, never winning once. How many years had it been? He had fantasized about the scene of meeting with Yang Jian again, but he had never imagined it would be under these circumstances. After a brief silence, a female cultivator of the Yang family couldn't help but ask, "Who are you?" The others hastily took out their magic artifacts. Even though they were frightened by the Yang family, they had no intention to run because this was the Yang family's ground, and their descendants were outside. They could not flee. Yang looked at Yang Jian, sweating profusely. He was locked in by Yang Jian's intent to kill, his mana frozen, unable to mobilize it. He couldn't see through Yang Jian's cultivation level at all. But one thing was certain. He was no match for this person. Yang Jian glanced at Yang and said, "Given your connections with Li Lingtian, put away your delusions." His gaze then shifted to Li Lingtian, his eyes indifferent. "Kid, nobody can touch your father's imperial seat including you. Don't forget the ambitions you told me about. How did you end up so vulgar?" On hearing this, Li Lingtian's face turned red, but he had no rebuttal. Because he once told Yang Jian that he wanted to become the #1 cultivator in the world, he wanted to pursue longevity and immortality, not to be some prince or crown prince. However, as his realm grew higher, he felt increasing resistance, and he couldn't help but ponder worldly possessions. "Who are you really? The person you are holding is from the human world peak. You had better weigh your options," another middle-aged cultivator said through gritted teeth. Yang Jian glanced at him, his eyes so cold that it terrified the man, who instinctively stepped back. The human world peak is formidable, and their peak master, the Taoist monarch of eternal years, is indeed a great power. I have discussed the Tao with him. "Oh, that's right, I am Yang Jian, the Candle World Saint King from the Holy Court. Have any of you heard of me?" Yang Jian's words made everyone's complexion change dramatically. The Saint King of the Holy Court. The cultivators of the Yang family were so frightened that they knelt down, foreheads to the ground, begging for Yang Jian's forgiveness. Li Lingtian sat stunned in his chair. Although he was puzzled as to why Yang Jian had become a Saint King, he was very clear about one thing. In front of the Holy Court, the human world peak was nothing. Yang Jian's gaze moved back to Yang, making Yang N's Tao heart tremble. "You are not worthy of the name and from today on, change your name," Yang Jian said with an unquestionable tone. Yang N's throat bobbed as he involuntarily uttered a word, "Okay." Seeing Yang Jian easily suppress the Yang family, Li Lingtian's mouth opened slightly, a sense of overwhelming defeat welling up inside him. The gap between him and Yang Jian was getting bigger and bigger. The seasons of the human world cycled, and early autumn had arrived once again. In the woods outside the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan lay on a tree branch, dappled sunlight speckling his face as he examined his attribute panel. Name, Guan, lifespan, 4,458/50,802,675,392, physique, primordial infinite body, cultivation level, innate golden immortal realm perfection, 50 billion years of lifespan. He had reached halfway to 100 billion. This was the accumulation Guan had achieved without massive slaughter or causing any upheaval, yet his lifespan had grown rapidly. Given such an advantage, he naturally did not have to struggle and risk his life like the common folks in the mortal coil. Because of this, he had to be more careful and cautious, never arrogant. Beneath the tree, Celestial Cyan and Tian Bai were practicing their swordsmanship, a dual-blade harmony technique created by Guan for them. The two women were vigorously immersed in their practice, while the celestial demon child was in the midst of a deep, extended cultivation retreat. "It's been a while since I've initiated a lifespan reincarnation. Should I give it a go?" Suddenly feeling an urge, Guan felt that his understanding of the great Tao had slowed down recently, and he needed a new stimulus. Lifespan reincarnation was the perfect way. Even with its risks, they wouldn't immediately affect him in reality. A gamble. It had been many years since the last one. It was time. With a thought, Guan immediately initiated the lifespan reincarnation. You have expended 10 million years of lifespan to commence a session of reincarnation evolution, starting to connect to Tao rules, searching for reincarnation worlds. You have the following worlds to choose from. Select 1. 1. Celestial Spirit Great World. 2. Great World of the Heavenly Tome. 3. Dark Great World. Great World? Heavenly Tome? Guan was drawn to the second option, but why did he feel like this world existed within the pages of a book? If so, he might encounter terrifying beings akin to the celestial spirit god. Forget it, better not meddle with the great worlds for now. 10 million years was not a small number to him. He'd have to work hard for half a year to attain it. Guan's gaze settled on the dark great world. Ever since Yang Xian defeated the Black Profound Emperor, Guan was no longer so cautious of him. This time he could attempt to confront the Black Profound Emperor again, to personally vanquish him. Having made his choice, a series of prompts appeared before his eyes. You have chosen to reincarnate into the dark great world. Considering the Tao rules of this world cannot conceal your talent, you will retain the ability to seize lifespan but cannot activate stage-specific functions. Reincarnation evolution begins. In the first year you are born in a town within the Western Extreme Domain. As a newborn, the town faces a demon beast attack, your parents are killed, and you are carried away by a demon beast, only to be fortuitously rescued by a cultivator. You are named by the cultivator as Black Profound. Chapter 5:12. Black Profound Ascension, Profound Clear Immortal Sect. Black Profound? Guan couldn't help but frown when he saw the first hint. Could Black Profound Emperor be his reincarnation body? He thought back carefully about the encounter Yang Xian had with Black Profound Emperor, who never revealed his true face, making it hard to judge. But if Black Profound Emperor was him, why would he want to kill his own reincarnation body? Guan continued to read, developing a strong curiosity about this lifetime. At 2 years old, you were taken back to the Celestial Dark Demon Sect by a cultivator, and the cultivator Luo Abyss officially took you as his disciple. At 4 years old, Luo Abyss began to teach you the cultivation technique, and you displayed extraordinary talent that shocked Luo Abyss. At 5 years old, Luo Abyss left, leaving you alone in his cave mansion. A python he was keeping broke out of its cage wanting to eat you. After a fierce battle, you killed the python and accidentally gained 30 years of lifespan, marking a turning point in your destiny. At 6 years old, you built your foundation establishment successfully with the demon core of the python. At 7 years old, Luo Abyss returned. Knowing that you had killed the python, he didn't say anything but handed you a secret manual. You took the manual and saw 5 words written on the cover: Yin-Yang Reversal Skill. The following were years of cultivation. Black Profound showed strong talent, but whether he was the strongest among the reincarnation bodies was still hard to tell. Until the age of 20, Black Profound was sent down the mountain by Luo Abyss to gain experience for a century. At 21 years old, you met an elderly Taoist. He noticed your extraordinary demeanor and wanted to tell your fortune. Do you accept? Why does every reincarnation involve such encounters? Could there be a scheme? Guan didn't believe in coincidences and he chose to refuse. You refused for the Taoist to tell your fortune. The Taoist shook his head with regret, saying that you would meet again one day. You watched his retreating back and remained silent for a long time. At 22 years old, you encountered a demon race attacking the city. Without hesitating, you joined the battle along with a group of cultivators and successfully repelled the demon race. Because of your heavy killing aura, the city's civilians kept their distance from you, and even other cultivators were wary of you. Unable to integrate, you silently left. At 23 years old, you encountered a demon cultivator committing evil acts. You eliminated the demon cultivator. The grateful mortal family from the city invited you to stay at their mansion for a few days. You agreed, and during the journey thereafter, you protected the family while defeating demons along the way. This caused the family to fear you even more. On the night before reaching the destination, you overheard them discussing how to send you away, and you left alone before dawn. At 24 years old, you came to Hanji City and heard that the city was hosting a magic battle conference. Only young talents under the age of 100 could enroll, and you decided to sign up. In the end, you defeated all the competitors, claiming first place powerfully and becoming famous citywide. At the celebration banquet, the city lord wanted to betroth his daughter to you. Do you accept? No. Although Black Profound might be the Black Profound Emperor, now it's Guan's reincarnation body, and he can't allow his reincarnation body to have any weaknesses. Finding a Tao companion is alright, but not now. You refused the city lord's goodwill and he shook his head, chuckled and did not persist. The very next day, You took the heavenly materials and earthly treasures you had won at the Magic Battle Conference and left. When you were about 100 miles from Hanji City, you encountered a group of mysterious cultivators who ambushed you. After a fierce battle, only one of them was left alive. Through coercion, you learned that it was the City Lord's arrangement, which infuriated you. At the age of 25, you entered the demon race's forest and began slaughtering demons extensively. At the age of 26, you returned to Hanji City and made your way to the City Lord's mansion where you chose to force your way in. A great battle erupted, and in the end you left the City Lord's mansion full of corpses. The exhausted City Lord knelt on the ground, begging for your forgiveness. His daughter also ran over, standing in front of you, hoping you would spare her father. Will you choose to forgive the City Lord? Forgive what? Did the City Lord ever forgive me? Guan, identifying with the role of Black Profound, also felt angered and immediately chose no. You ignored the pleas of the City Lord's daughter and beheaded the City Lord with a single sword strike. Then you turned and left. Under the gloomy sky, the City Lord's daughter knelt on the ground, cursing you hoarsely and vowing to seek revenge in the future. You were indifferent and walked away proudly. Guan, seeing this, felt that Black Profound might have developed feelings for the girl. Through this journey, how intense Black Profound's killing intent had been, almost catching up to Longzhan. Could he actually have spared the City Lord's daughter? The image of Black Profound in Guan's mind became even more nuanced, and as for the consequences of sparing the City Lord's daughter, Guan was not worried. With the life-controlling Black Profound Emperor evolving rapidly, his early live's enemies would hardly impact his future. In the subsequent prompts, Black Profound clearly relied heavily on life evolution, killing relentlessly each year, even routinely slaughtering the alien race, making Guan feel his growth rate would exceed his past lives. After a century, Black Profound returned to the Celestial Dark Demon sect. At the age of 121, you returned to Luo Abyss Cave Mansion and unexpectedly learned of Luo Abyss' death, the cause being demonic possession that led him to harm his fellow sect members, and he was slain by a great cultivator from within the sect in time. You found the incident highly suspicious. While staying at the Celestial Dark Demon sect to cultivate, you began investigating the truth behind your master's death. At the age of 122, you stumbled upon another disciple of Luo Abyss within the sect. After a discussion, you opened your heart, believing that your master could not have been possessed demonically. After hesitating, the other disciple suggested that the cause of the master's death might have been offending the vice sect hierarch, giving you a direction for your investigation. At the age of 123, while you were cultivating in the cave mansion, you felt strong auras approaching. Before you could think further, the restriction of the cave mansion was broken, and a group of law enforcement disciples forcibly entered, accusing you of demonic possession and harming your fellow sect members. They attempted to execute you on the spot. After a fierce battle, you escaped but were met with more opponents. You kept killing as you fled, leaving the Celestial Dark Demon sect and heading north. At the age of 124, you arrived in the land of the North Nether. Standing on a cliff, you were awestruck by the sight of Kuan leaping from the boundless ocean, which led you into a state of profound mystery and enlightenment. At the age of 125, deep in the glacier, you discovered a mysterious cave mansion. After days of research, you successfully deciphered the clues of the restrictions left on the cave mansion. You stepped inside and, after facing 9 mechanisms, saw a stele inscribed with the words cause and effect. Feeling the dense spiritual energy within the cave mansion, you decided to go into seclusion there, planning to seek revenge on the Celestial Dark Demon sect later. At the age of 135, you entered the Mahayana realm, prepared to return to the Celestial Dark Demon sect. Just as you were about to leave, the cause and effect stele vibrated, and a powerful force absorbed you into it. You found yourself in a dimly lit cave. Turning around, you saw that the stele behind you was different from the previous cause and effect stele. It had no inscriptions and was covered in cracks and dust. No matter how you applied your powers, the stele remained inert. You chose to walk out of the cave. Outside the cave wasn't the glacier anymore but a world resembling the immortal realm, filled with abundant spiritual energy that astounded you. Just as you were immersed in the magnificent scenes of nature, a white-robed woman resembling a fairy descended from the sky and landed beside you. You couldn't discern her cultivation level, so you were very vigilant. The white-robed woman asked if you had ascended from the lower realm, which puzzled you further. She invited you to join the profound clear immortal sect. Will you agree? Ascended? Guan had never heard of the profound clear immortal sect, But it seemed Black Profound had no other choice. If the other party harbored ill intentions, even if he refused, he would still face trouble. Why not join and see?